Chapter 33-48. Although Zhang Jiasan's weapon was sharp, the wound wasn't fatal. For the insects, it was just a small pain. This made people feel helpless. Ning Shu didn't care about Zhang Jiasan's help at all. She didn't need Zhang Jiasan to save her at all. No matter why Zhang Jiasan saved her, Ning Shu wasn't grateful to him. "Don't look at me like that. I just don't want you to die." "I don't want you to be grateful," Zhang Jiasan said. Ning Shu waved her whip and didn't listen to Zhang Jiasan at all. All the insects that came into contact with the whip were annihilated. It looked very relaxed and comfortable. The more she killed, the smoother it became. Moreover, Ning Shu could feel that the god-beating whip was absorbing the energy of the insects. The power of the god-beating whip was slowly becoming stronger. Ning Shu could feel that the god-beating whip was slowly changing. Ning Shu roughly understood that the god-beating whip would absorb the energy of any living being killed by the whip. Then, she would turn this energy into her own use, whether it was the soul or the living being. This was a good thing. This whip actually knew the star-sucking great technique. If she killed more insects, she might be able to let the whip grow. At that time, it would be able to develop consciousness and transform into a human form. Ning Shu was addicted to killing enemies now. It felt so good to whip one at a time. If one came, she would kill one. If two came, she would kill two. She would let the whip absorb enough energy. Little Mouse was very anxious. He wanted to tear open a hole and go to the plane to find Li Wen. There was no need to pay attention to strategy at all. They just needed to charge forward. However, the organization had obtained a lot of weapons with great destructive power. With one shot, a large area would be destroyed, and the insects would be annihilated. Low-level insects had no intelligence and only accepted orders. Even if many of their kind died in front of them, they still rushed forward fearlessly. "Hurry up and kill all these people. Hurry up, hurry up." Little Mouse shouted angrily. Because of his anger, his handsome face was very distorted and his eyes were red. He looked very scary. The insects were trembling in fear from the king's pressure. They rushed over desperately, causing a lot of pressure. Ning Shu felt that it was time to release the skeletons and let them gain some experience. Actually, mission enforcers like them were law incarnations, and they were only here to take a walk around the battlefield. Their main combat power was still the army. With perfect weapons and the golden body of merit, the army's combat power was very strong. The mission enforcers did not have much combat power. His weapon was not good, and his soul was weak. He could not use his merit, and his soul was not strong enough. He was relying on a few tricks to hold on. Ning Shu opened up the world of reincarnation. Soon after, skeletons jumped out one by one. Upon closer inspection, Ning Shu saw that each of the skeletons was holding a weapon in their hands. Their bodies were shining with golden light. This kind of gold was very deep, not light gold. It was dark and heavy. As soon as the skeletons appeared, they first adapted to the environment. Then, they raised their weapons and charged directly at the insects. Once they had their weapons in hand, they immediately attacked. Ning Shu was speechless. However, these skeletons were very sturdy. Even if they were scattered by the insects, they would quickly reform. Ning Shu's eyelids twitched as he watched from behind. He hurriedly said, "Don't get too close. Step back a little. Don't even think about fighting the insects head-on." Zhu Jun said, "Condense." All the skeletons suddenly broke into pieces. Then, the broken bones on the ground condensed and formed a bigger skeleton. Ning Shu flew up and stood on the skeleton's shoulder. It was more convenient for him to swing the whip. His field of vision became very wide. The senior grand uncle and his excellency floated in the air and did not move. They stared at the mice on the ship. Obviously, their goal was to kill the king of this race. However, the little mouse was very well protected. Not to mention the overwhelming number of insects, there were many human-shaped insects on the deck secretly protecting the little mouse. Ning Shu was a little puzzled. Why did these insects care so much about their king? It was as if they were protecting a powerless king. Ning Shu had never seen the little mouse fight. He did not know how strong the little mouse was. Did the little mouse have some special strength that made this race value their king and leader so much? It could be said that Little Rat could do whatever he wanted in this race. He could do whatever he wanted, and no one would raise any objections. Li Wen did not tell her. Even if Li Wen did know, she would not tell others what the little mouse was good at in order to protect the little mouse. She did not want to be enslaved like an earthworm. Ning Shu, who was standing on the skeleton's shoulder, was very eye-catching. He swung the whip loudly. As long as the insects were hit by the whip, they would vanish into thin air. It was like popping a balloon. The cracking sound was endless. The senior grand uncle and His Excellency glanced over. His Excellency was holding the hand of a good-looking child. The child was looking at Ning Shu and asked, "Hey, how did she change her appearance?" Black Fog felt that this girl was always changing. Besides, they had not seen each other for a long time. He did not recognize her. His Excellency let go of Black Fog's hand and said to him, "Go help her. After all, you were born in her world. If she dies, it will affect you." Black Fog nodded and turned into a cloud of black fog. It floated directly to Ning Shu and stood beside Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at the child who suddenly appeared and asked, "Why are you here?" "Go home and play with His Excellency. You shouldn't be here." Black Fog raised his chin. "I'm here to help you. I'm here. I can't afford to serve this arrogant child. Go back and play with His Excellency. At least his safety would be guaranteed if he followed His Excellency. If he followed her, she would have to take care of this child." Black Fog was a child. If he followed His Excellency, he would be the son of His Excellency, the master of Samsara. How noble his status was. Black Fog was dissatisfied. "Are you looking down on me?" Ning Shu said, "Yes, you are the best." Black Fog said, "Ha, woman." Ning Shu, Black Fog suddenly transformed into a little demon with horns on his head, a fork in his hand, and a tail. He actually raised his fork and stabbed at the insect. The fork pierced through the insect's hard shell. The insect's defense was like a piece of paper. It was completely useless in front of the little demon. After killing the insect, the little demon Ning Shu raised his chin. His expression was full of pride. The two dog-shaped ears on his head shook. Ning Shu knew that he was asking for praise. He immediately praised him sincerely. "I haven't seen you for a while. How did you become so powerful?" "I am so powerful. You are just ignorant," the little demon said. This was meaningless. Let's understand business flattery. I flattered you, but you belittled me. You should flatter me out of politeness. Chapter 33-49. The little demon looked at Ning Shu and probably felt that it was inappropriate for him to say that. After a while, he said, "You were much better looking before. Please take a look at the most complete. Look at all of you." Ning Shu's expression was indifferent as he cracked the whip. The sound of the whip was so cold that it made people's scalp numb. The insects that were hit by the whip turned into a pile of powder. Ning Shu asked, "Was I not good-looking before?" The little demon did not know why, but he suddenly had an epiphany and his desire to live exploded. "No, you are too beautiful now." Ning Shu raised the corner of his mouth. "You are also very cute. You look good even as a little demon. You look good when you bare your fangs." His Excellency was much better looking. His Excellency was completely different. His Excellency was a Yiksha. His Excellency was completely different. The black fog was a demon. It looked cute now, but who knew if it would become very ferocious in the future. The black fog was still young, but it was hard to say if it would grow up to be as ferocious as His Excellency. The little demon raised his pitchfork to kill the enemies. His pitchfork had 2 thorns, while His Excellency's had 3. It seemed that the little demon was going to become a copy of His Excellency. With the addition of the little demon, the pressure on this side decreased a lot. Zhang Jiasen looked up at Ning Shu on the giant skeleton's shoulder. The skeleton was so big that he needed to raise his head to see Ning Shu standing on its shoulder. Look up. Zhang Jiasen felt that he would have to look up to this woman in the future. Could it be that he could not do anything even if he risked his life? What was the child next to her? There were too many strange things around her. He had never seen anything like this before. Not to mention her own strength, the things around her all had strength that he could not compare to. Ning Shu, the skeleton, and the little demon took most of the pressure. The task enforcers at the back had less pressure. They used all kinds of methods to attack the insects. They caused more or less damage to the insects. For example, the Chongsam man's time could slow down the insects. Ning Shu could move faster. The little demon's speed was very fast. A pair of black wings quickly shuttled through the insects. He raised his pitchfork and stabbed one insect at a time. In Ning Shu's mind, the scene of Runtu holding a steel fork suddenly appeared. The more he thought about it, the more he felt the resemblance. He felt like laughing, but as a child, Ning Shu held himself back. Little Mouse's voice was like a roaring dragon. Hurry up, tear these people apart. Hurry up. At the same time, the insects' bodies were covered with a layer of faint red bubbles. All the insects were surrounded by a red bubble. Suddenly, these bugs seemed to have entered a berserk state. Their bodies grew bigger with a bang, and their muscles bulged. Each of the bugs was like a small mountain. The strength of these insects had also become much stronger. Ning Shu couldn't even kill the insect with a single whip. The insect's defense was even more abnormal. The imp's pitchfork was stuck in the worm's body, and it took a lot of effort to pull it out. Damn, the little mouse actually had this ability. It could actually make all the bugs enter a berserk state and increase their strength by more than 1-fold. The insects had become stronger, and the mission enforcers on their side had entered a state of fatigue. The front line was pushed back a little. Previously, the imp had pierced the insects like paper. Now, it was like piercing potatoes. She could pierce them, but it took a lot of effort to pull them out. After a while, the imp was tired. After all, she was still a child, and her strength was limited. Ning Shu said to her, "Rest for a while. Look at you sweating." The imp, "Are you looking down on me?" Ning Shu. "What's wrong with this child? My God, how did His Excellency educate her? Why is she so stubborn? Look." The imp suddenly transformed. Her body became much bigger, and her hands also became much bigger. The black pitchfork turned red, as if it was burning black iron. It was obvious that the temperature was very high. The imp held the pitchfork and skewered several insects like a barbecue skewer. The temperature of the pitchfork was very high. The insects that were pierced by the pitchfork were in extreme pain. In the end, they were burned to ashes. The pitchfork was so hot, but the imp didn't seem to feel it. Ning Shu gave her a thumbs up. "How can you be so outstanding?" The imp raised her chin. The imp now was probably a child who had just returned home from kindergarten. She was eager to show her parents what she had learned. Ning Shu praised the imp who loved to show off. She should work hard to kill the insects. This way, they would feel less pressure. The skeletons were still very unfamiliar with this kind of situation. They were smashed apart several times, but they reformed again. The main reason was that there were too many insects. The skeletons blocked in front and took almost all the attacks from the insects. Fortunately, he had created the golden body of merit. Otherwise, the huge force from the insect would have shattered the bones of these skeletons. At the beginning, the skeletons were also in a hurry. Originally, there were so many skeletons gathered together. Even if they had already started to work together, when they really entered the battlefield, all kinds of situations would occur. Ning Shu said, "Don't be anxious. Take it slow. Don't aim to kill the enemy. Just hold on until the end of the battle." These insects had entered a berserk state. They rushed over tirelessly and fearlessly. However, they couldn't do the same. Ning Shu thought of the soothing agent that had fused the law of wood and the law of water. After fighting for so long, everyone was very tired. Ning Shu fused the law of water with the law of wood, forming droplets of emerald green water. These water droplets were like raindrops falling on everyone's bodies and fusing with their souls. The mission enforcers behind suddenly felt refreshed. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on them. It refreshed their minds. Their tiredness disappeared, and they were full of energy. Ning Shu's area of effect was not large. It was only on the mission enforcers. The people in the army all used merit, and the mission enforcers were much more resilient. With Ning Shu's assistance, the mission enforcers felt much better. However, some of them looked at Ning Shu with complicated expressions. Speaking of which, many of these people had grievances with Ning Shu. Back then, many law incarnations had found trouble with Ning Shu. Now, Ning Shu was helping them. Their feelings were really complicated. However, now that everyone wanted a ship, there was no need to worry about such things. Even if there were any conflicts in the future, they had to survive on the battlefield. Everyone suppressed their distracting thoughts and started to kill the enemy. Their aura unexpectedly twisted into a rope to resist the insects. The insects on the ship were furious. They walked around the deck. The subordinates next to them comforted the little mouse. "King, don't worry. They will tear open soon." To be honest, these people were very unhappy when they saw that their king cared about a plankton-like human. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 3350. To their race, humans were the difference between Kuan-Pang and plankton. They were high-level creatures that ate planes. Humans were just parasites in the world of living creatures. Why would their king care about a mosquito? However, this was their king. They would support whatever their king liked. The most important thing was that their king was happy. However, they would lose so much because of a human. Any insect with some intelligence would not be happy. They did not want to lose too much because of their king because of a lowly human. Now that their king was in a violent mood, his subordinates could only comfort him. "Of course I'm anxious. I don't know where Li Wen is. Did he return to the world? Or did he encounter some danger in the void?" Little Mouse held his forehead. His eyes were scarlet. There was no wind around him, but his robe was blowing. The subordinates around him were suffocated by the pressure on Little Mouse. Their king could increase their strength. Little Mouse had a bug-like skill. It could increase the energy of a group by 30%. This was a very terrifying skill. This race's population was already very scary. Increasing it by 30% was a bit unbelievable. Now Little Mouse was anxious. He increased the strength of the insects over and over again. However, nothing was perfect. Although the strength of these insects was increased by 30%, they would enter a period of weakness after going berserk. After going berserk, the insects would become very weak. Some would even die directly because of overexhaustion. Although these insects were very fierce now, once the berserk effect was over, they would become very weak. Retreat and defend. Enhe's voice spread to every corner. Now that the insects were very strong, there was no need to fight them head-on. Defense was the priority. When the berserk period was over, these insects would become very weak. They would be wiped out in one fell swoop. If the other party did not go berserk, this battle might take a long time. However, once they went berserk, it would end quickly. There was a limit to the berserk period. Once the time was over, if the other party's leader still allowed these insects to go berserk, they would die without needing to do anything. They were not afraid that they would go berserk. They were afraid that they would not go berserk. Ning Shu quickly retreated. On the battlefield, he had to listen to orders. Retreating was the best. After all, the skeletons could not hold on any longer. Even if they had formed the golden body of merit, these bones were full of scars. These scars were all caused by the insects. These bugs evolved by eating planes, evolving into thousands of different ways of attack. Ning Shu was amazed that the skeletons could persist until now. In the future, he would definitely earn more money to nurture these skeletons. If they could retreat now, they would be able to relieve some of the pressure. Ning Shu looked at the little devil and said, "Let's withdraw first. Don't fight anymore. Push down a safe place." The little demon flapped its wings and flew over, but its legs were entangled by the insect's antennae. Unable to break free, he was soon entangled by the tentacles. When the abyssal prefect saw this, he took a few steps forward before stopping in his tracks. However, his gaze remained fixed on Qin Yi. Ning Shu immediately flew over and used his space blade to cut off the tentacles. Then, he used his powerful mental power to attack the insect. The little devil broke free from her tentacles and shook off Ning Shu's hand. "Don't pull me. Men and women can't be separated." "Ning Shu, little brat, are you a man?" All the teams retreated. Then, a barrier appeared in front of them, isolating them from the insects on the other side. The unintelligent insects crashed into the barrier wave after wave. They did not care if the barrier could be broken or not. Instead, they continued to crash into the barrier wave after wave. They crashed into the barrier with loud bangs. After being bounced off, they continued to crash into the barrier wave after wave. With the limited intelligence of the insects, they probably did not understand why they could see each other and why they could not touch each other. In addition, these insects were now in a berserk state. They only had killing in their minds. They did not have much intelligence before, but now they had no intelligence at all. The brain was a good thing. At this time, the insects were so stupid that it made people feel that they might as well be weak humans with intelligence. At least they would think when faced with problems and think of ways to survive when faced with danger. Seeing that there was no danger, Ning Shu directly sat down. His hand that was holding the whip trembled slightly. He was tired. The whip was also trembling. Obviously, it had absorbed enough energy and was now a little full. The skeletons shattered on the ground with a crash. Then, these bones returned to their homes and formed small skeletons. There were marks on each skeleton's body. Some were deep and some were shallow. Ning Shu took out the merit grains and said to Zhu Jun, "Give some to each skeleton to heal their wounds." The marks on these skeletons could not be removed unless they used merit. In fact, merit was used to fill these marks. It was like filling a tooth. Now, the organization was waiting for these insects to go berserk. Then, they would rest and conserve their energy. They would wait for the enemy's advantage to slowly fade away. Ning Shu was glad that the organization did not let them fight the berserk insects head-on. Otherwise, Ning Shu did not know if his skeletons would have suffered any losses. Usually, he used a huge amount of merit to feed them. Now, he saw the results. Zhu Jun took the mess in space. The merit grains given to each skeleton were different according to their injuries. If they were seriously injured, more would be given. If they were not, less would be given. Ning Shu put away the whip. Next time, she would definitely not use the whip again. Ning Shu could feel that the whip could no longer be used. It had reached its limit. The whip could no longer absorb energy. Once the whip could no longer absorb energy, its power would be greatly reduced. Instead of using the whip, it would be better to use other weapons. Ning Shu asked the little devil, "Are you injured?" The little devil had turned into a white and tender child. Being touched by Ning Shu, she could not help but push his hand away. "I'm fine. Why are you touching me?" "Ning Shu. I'm just checking if you are injured." Why did he feel that this child was so awkward? Zhang Jiasen looked at Ning Shu and the child. He took out a box and hesitated. "For you." Zhang Jiasen handed the box to Ning Shu. Ning Shu turned and looked at the box. He did not know why he was given something. "I don't want it." "Open it and see." Zhang Jiasen insisted. Ning Shu sat further away and talked to Zhu Jun. He did not pay attention to him at all. Zhang Jiasen smiled and put the box away. The man in the Cheongsam asked Ning Shu strangely, "What's going on with you and Wu Dao's incarnation? Why do I feel that you two are weird?" Ning Shu laughed. "Cheating? I'm afraid your eyes are lame." She had a grudge with Zhang Jiasen, but it was definitely not cheating. Chapter 3351. Who knew what was in Zhang Jiasen's box? It was probably something disgusting. Even if it wasn't something disgusting or a treasure, Ning Shu didn't care. Zhang Jiasen was a hypocrite. He was both sincere and fake. Now, he was trying to be friendly again. To Ning Shu, there was nothing but disgust. "Speaking of adultery, I think you have an affair with the judge," the Cheongsam man said. He looked at the senior uncle carefully as he spoke. Ning Shu looked at the Cheongsam man in confusion. "Why do I feel like you're like a woman? So gossipy, and your eyes are even more lame." She was the same as Zhang Jiasen and the senior uncle. They all hated each other. Ah Wan stood quietly at the side. Her attention was on the little devil. The little devil was a little annoyed by Ah Wan's stare. He looked at Ah Wan with an unfriendly gaze. "Why are you staring at me?" Ah Wan said, "You're so cute." Especially when he turned into the little devil. He was really cute. Ning Shu was speechless. The little devil in human form was, of course, cute. But when he turned into a little devil, he couldn't be considered cute. Ning Shu suddenly felt that Ah Wan's aesthetics were a little hard to explain. "You're really cute." Ah Wan reached out and pinched the little devil's face. "What's your name?" If it weren't for her image, Wan would have held her face and called him kawaii. Slap. The little devil slapped Ah Wan's hand away. "Don't touch me, especially women." "Ha, women. So cute." Ah Wan didn't care about the little devil's attitude at all. Instead, she was full of tolerance. After resting for a while, everyone felt a little better. They looked at the bugs energetically bumping into the barrier one after another. Some people even teased these bugs for being really stupid. Although these mission enforcers were teasing them, their expressions were very serious. Even if these bugs were really stupid and didn't have any intelligence, their strength was really too strong. It made people feel especially helpless. Of course, it also made people feel very helpless. Such creatures with no intelligence actually had such powerful strength. It made people jealous. On the other hand, intelligent humans like them were powerless in front of these insects. When the little mouse saw this situation, it became even more irritable. It stomped its foot and almost broke through the entire deck. The deck was filled with cracks, and the wooden planks could not bear the weight and directly cracked. If you have the ability, then remove the barrier. If you have the ability, then fight. The little mouse felt that something was wrong. Of course, he knew that there was a problem with his race. After going berserk, they were in a weaker state. The other party was obviously waiting for them to weaken before attacking. Humans were so cunning. If only Li Wen was here. Little Mouse missed Li Wen very much. Moreover, the low-level subordinates who had entered a berserk state were completely simple-minded. Even if they were given orders, they might not understand. What should he do? He could only watch as his subordinates crashed into the barrier. Was the barrier something that could be broken so easily? Little Mouse simply wanted to hammer the deck. He felt that his intelligence was being suppressed. Despair. The other subordinates on the deck tried to persuade Little Mouse. King, why don't we retreat? If we wait until the weakened state, we might be wiped out. Little Mouse stared bitterly at the plane behind the army. Li Wen might be inside. But he was really unwilling to leave just like that. King, let's go first. They're looking at us like tigers. Little Mouse did not have the strength to correct him. Like tigers eyeing their prey. Yes, like tigers eyeing their prey. Little Mouse was still in a dilemma. In the end, he said, wait a little longer. Let me break this barrier. King, that human should be dead. I think you should give up, the subordinate said very frankly. This made Little Mouse have a heart attack. Impossible. Li Wen is not someone who will die so easily. Little Mouse refused to believe this possibility. Little Mouse turned into his original form. He was a fist-sized silver mink with fluffy silver fur and a long tail. The silver mink was very fast. A beam of light flashed in front of his eyes and he disappeared. The silver mink crashed directly into the barrier and directly caused the barrier to shake violently. The silver mink showed his sharp teeth and directly knocked on the barrier with his teeth. Surprisingly, the sturdy barrier began to crack rapidly with the silver mink as the center. When the cracks covered the entire barrier would directly explode like glass. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, these bugs' teeth were really good. They directly knocked on the barrier and broke it. Seeing that the barrier was about to break, some mission enforcers directly jumped up in shock. Ning Shu was very calm. Anyway, if the sky fell, there would be tall people to hold it up. Someone would definitely repair the barrier. These bugs were still in their berserk state. The organization did not want to suffer any losses. They would definitely repair the barrier. Sure enough, the barrier was quickly restored to its original state. The cracks on it disappeared completely. The law incarnations present all breathed a sigh of relief. However, the next second, their hearts were in their mouths again because Little Mouse had knocked on the barrier and broken it again. This repeated several times. Everyone's hearts also went up and down, especially the law incarnations who had come to the battlefield for the first time. Their psychological quality was not very good. It was just like Ning Shu's first time on the battlefield. After that, it took a long time to adjust. Now, it was probably because they were stronger. In addition, they had experienced it once. They were unexpectedly calm and collected. All the uneasiness was because they were not sure. They were not sure because they were not strong enough. That was why they were not calm. Ning Shu was very surprised to see Little Mouse sticking to the barrier. He felt that Little Mouse's teeth were really good. It could gnaw on planes, eat energy bodies, and even break the barrier. He could try to study its teeth. When he first met Little Mouse in the plane, he should have taken one of its teeth and studied it. How could he have known that Little Mouse had this ability when he was massaging it? He just thought that it was a little thing with spiritual energy. Little Mouse did not have much patience. It used its teeth to knock on the barrier several times, but it was instantly repaired by the other party. Suddenly, all the hair on its body stood up, and even its fur turned red. The fluffy fur made Little Mouse round. It screamed sharply, its voice full of sorrow, anger, and grievance. Hearing its screams, these mindless insects immediately trembled. As if their bodies were full of energy, they kept knocking on the barrier, causing it to tremble. Although the barrier's momentum was terrifying, and the paper-thin barrier was about to break at any time. The barrier stood firm. No matter how much water was pouring out from the other side, the barrier was as immovable as a boulder. Little Mouse kept knocking on the barrier with its teeth, but it was quickly repaired. Fortunately, these barriers were made by the big bosses. Otherwise, they would have been broken long ago. Ning Shu no longer paid attention to the barrier. He asked Zhu Jun, "The skeletons have eaten the merits. When will the scars on their bodies disappear?" Chapter 3352. Ning Shu had thought that these skeletons would be able to heal their wounds quickly after eating the merit, but they hadn't. The marks were still there. Zhu Jun said, "We need time." Ning Shu frowned. "Can you do it? If you can't, then just retreat." The little demoness looked at these skeletons and curled her lips. "These skeletons aren't strong at all. They're not as strong as the skeletons of the Abyssal Prefect." Ning Shu turned to look at the little demoness. "Does the Abyssal Prefect know that you're asking for a beating?" The little demoness raised her chin elegantly. The Abyssal Prefect said that only the weak would care about a little fake warmth and deceive themselves into thinking that they're kind. These skeletons aren't as strong as the skeletons of the Abyssal Prefect to begin with. Am I wrong? The Abyssal Prefect said that I don't need to pretend to be nice to others because I have the right to say what I want to say. I don't need to accommodate others or go against my will just to make them feel better. Others might feel better, but I'm not happy. What good is it for me if I don't have a clear mind? Ning Shu was speechless. He was rendered speechless by a child's rebuttal. The little demoness was getting more and more excited. "Don't tell me that humans like you, who are naturally weak, work so hard to climb up so that you can bow and scrape to others." Ning Shu said, "Oh, weak humans." The little demoness said, "See, you can't listen to the truth again. Whether I'm telling the truth or not, the truth is right here." Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at the little demoness. It seemed that the little demoness' logic was very clear. She was clearly no longer the ignorant black fog that only knew how to eat souls. Moreover, she could even choke people to death with her words. He was speechless. Ning Shu didn't want to argue with a child. "Okay, you're right. I'm right from the start. Only the weak like to attach importance to some inexplicable feelings and entrust them to ethereal things." Ning Shu said. "You're a demon, so you don't understand the feelings that arise from reproduction. You're too weak, so you need to group up. What do you do if you want to group up? Of course, you need to maintain all kinds of feelings, love, family, and friendship." The little demon tilted her head, thought for a moment, and said, "Using feelings to cover up the fact that we need each other's benefits. Whether it's love, friendship, or family, they are all for the sake of alleviating one's loneliness, or for the sake of survival." Ning Shu. What does His Excellency teach you every day? She actually had to debate with a child. She was mentally exhausted. Talk about the unfathomable problems of survival. The little fiend said, "He didn't teach me. He always made me think. I saw too many creatures in the world of reincarnation, especially humans. I thought of many things when I saw them." Ning Shu. I didn't expect you to be so smart. She was thinking about profound philosophical questions. The little devil raised her chin in a dignified manner. Of course. There was no point in discussing this with the little devil. Ning Shu said to Zhu Jun, "If these skeletons can't hold on, then let's retreat. If it went on like this, some skeletons might collapse." Zhu Jun thought for a moment and said, "Let's wait a little longer. We can hold on. This time, the skeletons should be able to cooperate better." This experience had a qualitative change for the skeletons. Zhu Jun also hoped that these skeletons could become stronger. It was useless for him to be strong alone. After all, one person's strength was limited. The skeletons still needed to cooperate with each other. He had seen these insects before, but he didn't expect them to be so powerful. Zhu Jun thought very far. If he wanted to survive in this world, he must have strong strength. He had to consider the situation of each skeleton. Ning Shu didn't force him. Zhu Jun was a skeleton with a sense of propriety. He certainly didn't want these skeletons to be damaged. The berserk period is probably over. Ning Shu saw that the red light on the insects in Zhejiang was weakening. Once the red light disappeared, they would enter the weak period. It was the opportunity for the organization to take action. King, let's go. Let's go quickly. The berserk force is about to disappear. The subordinate said to the little mouse. The little mouse's face was filled with irritation. When it saw that its clansmen were about to enter the weak period, it felt regretful. It shouldn't have let its clansmen enter the berserk period so casually. The little mouse was somewhat unwilling. It could only give the order to retreat. After the order was given, the insects immediately began to retreat. They retreated like the tide. Attack. You advance, I retreat. You retreat, I attack. As soon as the barrier was removed, everyone attacked the insects. The red light on the insects completely disappeared. They had entered the weak period. All their characteristics had decreased. Their attack power and defense power were also weak. Ning Shu condensed a long spear in his hand. The long spear's attack range was very far. The skeleton reformed into a big skeleton. It looked slow, but its running speed was very fast. It carried Ning Shu on its shoulder and chased after the insects. The insects had no intention to fight and directly retreated. The little devil flapped its black wings. It held a steel fork and stabbed the insects one by one. The insects were as brittle as potato chips. With a crack, the insects disappeared. Release the weapons. And he commanded. The army started to use the weapons with great destructive power. The weapons were thrown into the swarm of insects. It was like a sound wave that radiated outwards. With a bang, the entire battlefield became a battlefield. The insects were directly turned into powder by the radiation of the weapons. The destructive power was huge. A lot of bomb-like weapons were thrown and the insects were directly annihilated. Fuck. The little mouse on the deck saw this scene and was instantly furious. These humans were cunning. Although there were a lot of races, they couldn't survive such a massacre no matter how many of them there were. Retreat, King. Quickly give the order to retreat. The subordinate said to the little mouse. Without these low-level clansmen, the strength of the low-level clansmen would be greatly reduced. The low-level clansmen were huge in number. Although they didn't have intelligence, they were good at listening to orders. Without these low-level clansmen, the clansmen's strength would be greatly reduced. The king had the ability to increase the strength of his clansmen. But without his clansmen, what could he do? He couldn't use his strength. This was why it was important to preserve his strength. The little mouse bit his cheeks. His eyes were red. He snapped his fingers and forcefully increased the strength of the insects, increasing their speed. Forcefully increasing the strength of his clansmen would cause them to be weakened for a long time. There were many dangers in the void and the clansmen could be wiped out at any moment. This was the plan of the other party. He was worried about Li Wan and his mind wasn't clear. At this moment, the situation of his clansmen made the little mouse's heart turn cold. He was angry and anxious. The insect's speed increased tremendously as it fled through the void. However, the organization was determined to get rid of these people. They chased after them and killed them. Chapter 33-53. No matter what, the organization had the upper hand. The little mouse's buff was both an advantage and a disadvantage. If the buff could kill the enemy in one fell swoop, it would be the best. But if it couldn't, there was a high chance that they would be killed instead. Now that the Zergs were weak, the organization's army was black in color. They had more people, and their morale was high. From all aspects, the organization's side had the upper hand. The Zergs had no intention to fight. They only cared about escaping. The Zergs that stayed behind gave up their lives just to increase the chance for their people to escape. They were all killed by the organization. Even if they had strong defensive abilities, they were still flesh and blood. They couldn't withstand the bombardment of powerful weapons. Ning Shu felt that it was easier to kill the Zergs now. Their defensive abilities weren't very strong and they didn't have any fighting power. However, when Ning Shu was killing the Zergs, he felt that someone was spying on him. It was almost undisguised. The feeling was very weak before, but now it was very strong. Ning Shu looked around and didn't find anyone spying on him. Everyone was killing the Zergs. Who would have the time to peek at him? Ning Shu could only suppress the doubts in his heart and focus on killing the Zergs. However, the feeling of being spied on appeared again. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn it! Who was spying on him? Ning Shu looked back at Zhang Jiasen. Zhang Jiasen was seriously killing the Zergs. Just dealing with the Zergs was enough to make her flustered. She didn't have the time to spy on him. There were so many people on the battlefield. Who knew who would have the time to spy on him? Ning Shu tried to kill the Zergs, but the feeling of being spied on followed him like a shadow. Ning Shu wondered if Li Wen was nearby. Was Li Wen watching him? But if Li Wen was really nearby, why didn't he appear? The little mouse paid a huge price to find Li Wen. Then it definitely wasn't Li Wen. Ning Shu was also wondering where Li Wen had run off to. If this continued, the little mouse branch might not be wiped out. They would all be killed. Damn it! Ning Shu was infuriated by the unbridled peeping. Who was this person? Come out if you have the ability. Big Sister will let you see as much as you want. What happened to you? The Chongsam man saw Ning Shu looking around and couldn't help but ask. If he was still distracted at this time, he might be killed. Although the Zergs were defeated, the Zergs were much stronger than them. Ning Shu frowned and asked, "Do you feel like something is spying on us?" Peeping? No. The Chongsam man shook his head. He really didn't feel like he was being peeped at. Ah Wan, who was beside him, tried to sense it but also shook her head. I don't feel anything. Either you offended someone or someone has a crush on you. Ah Wan's words were really interesting. Ning Shu didn't realize that he had a crush on her, but the peeping that followed her like a shadow made Ning Shu feel that this wasn't a crush. Instead, he had locked onto her. They were definitely enemies. Could it be that they were from some faction on planet Giant Gate? Were they planning to make a move now? If they made a move on the battlefield, if they died, they could just blame it on the Zergs. After all, anything could happen on the battlefield. Ning Shu immediately became more careful. She didn't want to rush to kill the enemy. Instead, she wrapped herself in the mission enforcer so that she didn't look too obvious. She also didn't want to stand on the skeleton's shoulder. The skeleton formed a huge skeleton. She stood on the skeleton's head and shoulder. She didn't want to be too conspicuous. Ning Shu jumped down from the skeleton's shoulder. Seeing Ning Shu jump down, the Chongsam man, Ah Wan, and Zhang Jiasen also jumped down from the skeleton's shoulder. As a teammate, Zhang Jiasen naturally followed Ning Shu's team. During the battle, Zhang Jiasen didn't attack Ning Shu. Instead, he blocked a few attacks for Ning Shu, even though Ning Shu didn't need it. Zhang Jiasen fought side by side with Ning Shu honestly. However, it couldn't be ruled out that Zhang Jiasen had some ulterior motives. Ning Shu followed behind the skeleton. In front of him, there was a skeleton blocking the Zerg's attacks. This battle wasn't as fierce as the previous one. Probably because of this, the little mouse was more unbalanced. Not long after the battle, it directly activated its buff mode. On the other hand, they had avoided the most powerful moment. In addition, Ning Shu's strength was stronger than last time. He was also much stronger. In addition to the skeleton, the battle was much easier than last time. Ning Shu looked around. This spiritual power was very presumptuous. Although it was discovered by Ning Shu, he didn't withdraw it. Because there were too many people, Ning Shu couldn't accurately distinguish where the spiritual power came from. Which ghost was it? Come out if you have the ability. Serious, what are you doing? Zhang Jiasen asked Ning Shu. Looking around, it was easy to be killed by the Zergs. Ning Shu said directly, just take care of yourself. Why do you care about me? Was she so familiar with Zhang Jiasen? She didn't directly kill Zhang Jiasen on the battlefield. She just let him kill a few more Zergs. If she was really annoyed, she would directly kill Zhang Jiasen. Zhang Jiasen's caring look made Ning Shu feel a little nauseous. Even if the sky fell and the earth cracked, Ning Shu wouldn't accept Zhang Jiasen's kindness, whether the kindness was sincere or hypocritical. If Zhang Jiasen didn't treat her well, she would erase everything. Zhang Jiasen narrowed his eyes and killed the Zergs in front of him. The Zerg's blood splattered on his body. He said loudly, "Are you so repulsed by me, or are you afraid of me? Are you afraid of being close to me?" "Yes, I'm so scared." Ning Shu went directly to the other side. She was afraid that she would kill each other on the battlefield. Squeak squeak squeak. There was a rhythmic sound of the mouse grinding teeth. It was probably an order. Soon, some Zergs changed their state of escape and rushed over here. There were a lot of them. They rushed over here fearlessly. Retreat, the Zergs are going to self-destruct. And his order spread to every corner of the battlefield. Obviously, they were going to sacrifice these Zergs in exchange for the survival of other Zergs. These Zergs didn't hesitate at all when facing death. They rushed directly toward them, rushed into the team, and disrupted the formation of the team. Although the team was retreating, the higher-ups had also set up a barrier to isolate these suicidal Zergs. But there were still Zergs rushing in. At the same time, these Zergs' bodies began to collide and bulge like balloons. These Zergs were already huge. Now that they were bulging, they were particularly terrifying. Retreat, retreat. It's going to explode. All kinds of horrified voices were intertwined. Ning Shu pulled the little demon and at the same time, took the skeleton with her to perform a fast space jump to avoid being blown up. The energy of these Zergs' self-destruction with their own lives was very large. Blowing up the plane was only a matter of minutes. They couldn't withstand it. Chapter 3354. At the same time, Ning Shu used his powerful mental strength to poke the bug's corpse like a needle just before it was about to explode. Due to the increase in size, the bug's defense would be much weaker. When it expanded, its skin would become thinner. Although it would still explode after being poked, the energy would be much smaller. Bang, bang, bang. Countless colors bloomed in the void like fireworks. The sound was quickly drowned out as the bitch exploded. Some mission enforcers who did not react fast enough were directly killed by the energy. Especially the law incarnations. Once they were killed, the law imprints on their bodies would float out. Things like law imprints were still very covetous. Although there was no tax now, one more law meant one more energy, and one strength would increase a little. Seeing these law imprints, some people's hearts were burning. They actually ignored the danger to snatch the imprints. Once a person was greedy, the word greed would fill their mind. There was nothing else. They were directly killed by the aftermath of the explosion. Not to mention the imprints, they were even dead now. The imprints on their bodies had also become ownerless. Ning Shu looked at these floating law imprints, but they were in the explosion area. He was really tempted. Ning Shu hesitated for a moment before rushing over and grabbing a law imprint. The energy of the explosion radiated on his body, and it was very painful. It was so painful that his soul was about to collapse. Fortunately, Ning Shu was immortal and immediately turned back. "Damn, you really don't want to live," the Cheongsam man said sourly. He also wanted the law imprint, but he did not dare to rush over. Not everyone was as ferocious as him. Ning Shu looked at the law imprint. It was a silver lightning-like imprint. "It's actually the Thunder Law." The Cheongsam man was a little surprised. "What's the Thunder Law incarnation doing?" "It's actually dead." To be able to comprehend the Thunder Law, one must have been struck by thousands of lightning bolts. The extreme Yang Law like thunder was very harmful to the soul. The soul was an otherworldly item. If one could not withstand the lightning bolts while comprehending the Thunder Law, one's soul would definitely be destroyed. The Thunder Law. Ning Shu did not know if his energy could withstand the lightning, but he had gained something. Moreover, if he could really control the lightning, it would be more effective against other mission enforcers. During a fight, a thunderbolt could deplete the opponent's strength. At the very least, the opponent wouldn't be in a good state. Sure enough, killing and arson were the best ways to earn money. War money was the easiest to earn, but the prerequisite was that one had to stay alive. There were several law imprints floating in the area of the explosion, constantly attracting the attention of the people present, causing those who were envious to rush over. Ning Shu didn't dare to go over. Although he wouldn't die, it was still very painful. That kind of explosive power almost caused his soul to collapse. Little Mouse stood on the deck and looked at the dazzling explosion. It was getting further and further away, and the power of the explosion finally became the size of a bright star. "Bastards, I will never forgive these people." Little Mouse gritted his teeth. "King, these people all died for a good reason. They all died for the sake of the race." The subordinate beside him advised. Sacrificing a little to help the entire race was something worth it. The Little Mouse's eyes were bloodshot. Half of them had exploded. Half of them was a terrifying number. However, only continuous explosions could stop these people in their tracks. Otherwise, everyone would have been caught. The subordinate said, "King, don't look for that human anymore. Ants have their own ways, and we have our own ways. You and he are not on the same path. King, you sacrificed so much for him. Does he know? He has disappeared without a trace. He doesn't care about you at all. King, he is using you." In order to persuade the Little Mouse, the subordinate was able to say these words. At the same time, he felt a little helpless. He felt that this battle was a little ridiculous. How could they lose so many of their people for a weak ant? However, these subordinates didn't resent the Little Mouse. After all, the king was everything. The king wouldn't be wrong. Even if the king was wrong, it was the people around the king who were wrong. For example, this time, it was because of that weak human. It was that human's fault. The king was too pitiful. He was deceived by a human. Little Mouse frowned. "I still have to find Li Wen." The subordinates were speechless. Who cares if he dies? So what if he found him? Now that he had lost so many people, he should rest. Just as he was talking, the ship suddenly stopped. Outside the cabin was a black mass of soldiers. "King, we are surrounded." A subordinate walked in and said in a panic. "What's going on?" They caught up so quickly. Such a big explosion formed a barrier. It was impossible for those people to pass through such a big explosion and appear in such a short time. "King, they must have set up an ambush here in advance." It seemed that the other party really wanted to kill them. Extermination. Little Mouse hurried out of the cabin. Standing on the deck, he saw that they were indeed surrounded. There were quite a few of them. It was definitely not the previous batch. This was definitely an ambush. As expected, they were treacherous. Humans were treacherous creatures. They caught them with both hands. Were they really going to be exterminated this time? They had already lost half of their people. Were they going to lose it again? They were like turtles in a jar. There were a lot of them. The leader was a silver-haired man. He held a book in his hand. The book looked very old. Looking at the situation, the subordinate also felt that there was no way to escape this time. Because half of their people had already self-destructed, these people were not enough to fight against these people. Moreover, they were all in a weakened state. Even if the insect's intelligence was not high, they knew that the current situation was very unfavorable for them. Moreover, their survival instinct was very sharp. The subordinate said to Little Mouse, "King, we will all self-destruct. You can escape." Little Mouse's eyes were red. They were so red that it seemed like blood could seep out. He looked at the silver-haired man. "You are really despicable. Despicable. I shouldn't have been so soft-hearted and let those broken planes of yours go." The silver-haired man's expression was calm. He did not care about the roars of the losers. With a wave of his hand, the army immediately took out their weapons. The cannonball directly exploded in the swarm of insects. With a bang, a lot of smoke was smashed out. The smoke quickly spread out. The insects inhaled the smoke and soon began to sneeze one after another. Their bodies swayed and they fell down. How despicable. They actually used rejuvenation grass. The grass that insects hated the most was rejuvenation grass. To them, it was like a sleeping pill. It had both advantages and disadvantages. The silver-haired man looked at these insects and said calmly, "Go, exterminate them all." Chapter 33:55. "King, you have to go," the subordinate said to Little Mouse. His people were already weak. Now that they had absorbed the smoke from the rejuvenation grass, they had no power to fight at all. Little Rat yawned, and tears flowed out of his eyes. It was because he was sleepy and sad. Just one failed decision had caused such a serious mistake. "King, you have to go. Only when you are safe can the race survive. Go, King." The subordinate shouted at Little Mouse. "Don't look for that human again." In this situation, they could only save the fire seed. Even if the entire race died, the king could not die. Little Mouse gritted his teeth and turned into a fist-sized mouse. Then, he disappeared. "Listen to my orders. Everyone, self-destruct." Seeing that their king had escaped, the subordinates were ready to die. They were the first to self-destruct. Bang, bang, bang. Like a chain reaction, the area was filled with loud explosions. "Retreat." The silver-haired man ordered the army to retreat. He looked at the insects indifferently. Since they were willing to self-destruct, it saved them the trouble of destroying them. As for the king who ran away, they did not care at all. A king without an army was not that powerful. At least the organization would lead to a period of peace. The spiritual light from the explosions shone on the silver-haired man's face. After confirming that all the insects were dead, he just needed to deal a blow to the self-destruct ones. These insects did not even leave behind a corpse. Some insects were a little slower and were directly killed by the explosion of their companions. A race without intelligence was so easy to be toyed with. Perhaps locusts were locusts. Retreat. The silver-haired man rushed back with a wave of troops. On Ning Shu's side, the insects that were left to self-destruct really self-destructed. They did not think about escaping or surviving. These insects only had appetite and the instinct to follow orders. Through the barrier, everyone looked like they were watching fireworks. They completely forgot that this was a battlefield. This was the brilliance of the insects using their lives to bloom. Ning Shu did not care about these insects. Anyway, there was a barrier blocking them. It was just that he was being stared at with sticky spiritual power. It was very uncomfortable. Who was watching him? Pine. When the last sound of the explosion stopped, everyone felt like they were in a dream. Was the war over? At the same time, the silver-haired man who had been lying in ambush had also joined up with a large group of soldiers. When Ning Shu saw the two sides converge, he instantly understood that the Zergs were probably going to be wiped out this time. According to the insect's IQ, it would definitely kneel down. Was the little mouse still alive? It seemed that the organization was serious this time. The little mouse had met his match. This time, the insects were all dead. Did that mean that the organization wouldn't have to worry about insects for a long time in the future? In the past, they might have been just testing each other casually. Now that the insects had crossed the line, the organization gave them a thunderous strike. No matter how many locusts there were, humans had ways to exterminate them. Ning Shu frowned. Li Wen's departure had directly caused the entire race to be sacrificed. Was Li Wen alive or dead? Was the little mouse alive or dead? Ning Shu looked at the silver-haired man who looked like he had walked out of an oil painting. He wanted to ask, but it was better not to ask such a question in this situation. In terms of position, she didn't seem to have any position to care about the insects. Ning Shu stretched himself. It's over. It's really fast this time. The man in the Cheongsam couldn't believe it. The first time, he was almost half dead. This time, it was actually so fast. It was a little unbelievable. Isn't it better to be faster? When it's over, we can also do our own things. One said. No matter what, they couldn't interfere with the organization's decision. They could only try their best to protect themselves. Ning Shu looked around, hoping to see the person who had been spying on him for a long time. He didn't believe that this person wouldn't appear. Ning Shu said to the little devil, "It's over. Do you want to go back to the world of samsara with me?" The little devil shook her head. "No, I want to play with His Excellency." Ning Shu could only say, "Then go back. Thank you for helping me this time." "I didn't help you. If you die, it will affect the world," the little devil said very straightforwardly. Ning Shu. No matter what the reason is, you have to protect me. Was the reason important? It wasn't important. What was important was the result. Ning Shu thought about it and took out some snacks, some fruits, and stuffed them to the little devil. "Take them and grind your teeth." The little devil was very disgusted. "What is this? I don't want it. I don't eat this kind of thing. You can keep it for yourself." The little devil rejected Ning Shu's snacks. A pair of wings grew out of her back and she flew towards His Excellency. Seeing His Excellency, the little devil opened her arms and directly rushed into His Excellency's arms. Ning Shu looked from afar and his heart was very sour. Their relationship was so good. His Excellency sized up the little devil and asked, "You're not injured, right?" "No, those insects weren't strong at all." The little devil curled her lips and said. His Excellency stretched out his hand and touched her head. "They weren't strong. If they were strong, they would have swallowed you directly when they swarmed you." The mission takers were told to leave. Those who survived would be rewarded. As for those who died, everything was over, and there was nothing left for them. Ning Shu didn't leave. She was waiting for the owner of the spiritual power to appear. If he didn't appear now, when would he appear? The Cheongsam man saw that Ning Shu didn't move and asked, "Why don't you go back? You still want to fight? You guys go first. I have something to do." Zhang Jusin glanced at Ning Shu. He probably knew that the battle was over and he was likely to be killed by Ning Shu. He ran away immediately and didn't dare to contact Ning Shu alone. On the battlefield, Zhang Jiasun was a little bit sure that Ning Shu wouldn't kill him. But now that the battle was over, Zhang Jiasun didn't dare to gamble. He was afraid that Ning Shu would find trouble with him and immediately ran away. Ning Shu wasn't in the mood to pay attention to Zhang Jiasun. Compared to Zhang Jiasun, Ning Shu was more concerned about someone peeping at him. Opening Reincarnation Century, Ning Shu said to the skeletons, "Go back and recuperate. Erase all the traces on your body." The skeletons jumped into the world of reincarnation. Zhu Jun stayed behind. Ning Shu asked, "Do you want me to stay with you?" Ning Shu shook his head. "You're tired too. Go back and rest. It's over. I can handle it." Zhu Jun nodded and also entered the whirlpool. When everyone disappeared, the whirlpool in the world of reincarnation disappeared. Ah Wan looked at the black hole. Ning Shu asked, "Is this the world of reincarnation you built?" "Ning Shu, how did you know?" "Ah Wan, it was very obvious." "Okay, don't look like your secret was discovered." Chapter 3356. Ah Wan asked, "How many worlds of samsara are there?" Ning Shu. 2. There were indeed 2 mature worlds of samsara. The other worlds were not mature yet. Ah Wan's eyelids twitched. She said to Ning Shu, "That's impressive." Mutual praise. Ning Shu immediately waved his hand and said, "Not impressive. You guys are more impressive." Anyway, there was nothing wrong with being humble. Thanks for the compliment. This was all due to his own efforts. Ah Wan hesitated and asked, "Is your world of samsara crowded? Are there any connections to other living worlds?" 9 Palace Mountain was considered a world. Ning Shu nodded. Yes. Ah Wan asked again, "Is the world of samsara crowded?" Ning Shu thought for a while and said, "It's okay. It's not that crowded." Now she still had an empty world of samsara. There was already a mature reincarnation pool. The other worlds were still slowly evolving. Like fish spitting bubbles, there were more and more bubble-like worlds. When they were stuck together, they would slowly form the world of samsara. The world of samsara was still very young. There was no problem of destruction. Perhaps after a long time, there would be problems and destruction. Ah Wan's eyes glowed. She asked Ning Shu, "Can your world of samsara connect to other living worlds?" Ning Shu shook his head honestly. "I don't know. Because this world of samsara is relatively new and formed not long ago, I don't know if it can connect to other living worlds." "Does your living world need to connect to the world of samsara?" Ah Wan nodded. She looked a little worried. She said to Ning Shu, "Now my world is connected to His Excellency's world of samsara. But you also know that the world of samsara is very crowded. The living world built by mission enforcers is connected to His Excellency's world of samsara. But the world of samsara is like a plane. It can have problems or collapse at any time. If the connected world of samsara collapses, then the souls in the living world can't go to the world of samsara. At this time, they need to connect to other worlds of samsara. They need to pay a huge price." Ning Shu felt that among these big shots, the richest one was probably the Abyssal Prefect. Abyssal Prefects were the richest. The living world constructed by the big shots had to be connected to the world of reincarnation. Only by repeating the cycle of life and death could the world last long. If the living world couldn't be connected to the world of reincarnation, it would be easy for problems to arise in the living world. If the balance was broken, the world might be destroyed. Was it easy to build a world? Not easy at all. Take the 9 Palace Mountain for example. If Ning Shu didn't solve the problem of the 9 Palace Mountain, it might be destroyed. After all, deformed things could not exist for a long time. Even severely deformed creatures could not survive, let alone a world. Ah Wan asked Ning Shu anxiously, can your world connect to other living worlds? It was definitely possible. After all, one of the worlds was still empty. However, Ning Shu felt that he needed to be careful when connecting to the other saints' spirit worlds. I don't know. Maybe. I am a little numb to the world now. You know, I don't know what the world is like now. If I can connect to other worlds, I will inform you immediately. Ning Shu could tell that Ah Wan wanted to connect to the world of reincarnation. Ning Shu thought about his world tree. In the future, when his world formed, there would be so many leaves and living creatures. Then, he would need many worlds of reincarnation. Although the world formed by the world tree was not visible, Ning Shu had to plan. This thing might not be enough for his world of reincarnation. Even if he wanted to connect to other living worlds, he couldn't connect too many. Otherwise, he wouldn't have enough. Ah Wan looked at Ning Shu's pure and innocent look and just said, if there are extra spots in the future, you can leave one for me. The price can be discussed. Ning Shu nodded, okay, I will consider you first. It was okay to consider Ah Wan first. It seemed that Ah Wan could still handle star stones in the future. He had to pull Ah Wan over here as his revolutionary comrade. If other people wanted to connect to his world of reincarnation, Ning Shu might not agree. When Ah Wan heard Ning Shu's words, she smiled at Ning Shu. Ah Wan was originally good-looking. When she smiled, Ning Shu's eyes were almost dazzled. He just liked good-looking people and things. Moreover, Wan didn't have any grudges with him. He felt assured to be friends with such a person. Thinking about the more than 10 law imprints on Ah Wan's body, Ning Shu felt that Ah Wan was probably the winner in life. How could she have so many imprints and be so outstanding? Where were these imprints? She didn't have a single imprint on her body now. She got a Thunder Law imprint. Ning Shu didn't know if she could use it. After all, the Thunder Law imprint was too much of a test for the soul. The soul might not be able to withstand it. Ah Wan looked at Ning Shu up and down, left and right. She asked, is there something wrong with me? Ning Shu said, I'm just curious about your more than 10 law imprints. If the law space was still there, Wan would be so rich. More than 10 law imprints, that was the tax of more than 10 cities. It was too scary. Ning Shu felt that Ah Wan's entire body was shining with golden light. She was a rich woman. Ah Wan was a rich woman who didn't show off her wealth. She was definitely one. I feel that your entire body is covered in a halo. Ning Shu said. It was too dazzling. Ah Wan smiled. She asked Ning Shu to leisurely consider her if he wanted to connect to the world of living beings. Ning Shu nodded, indicating that he understood. After that, Ah Wan also left. Everyone left sparsely. Ning Shu didn't leave because he could feel that this spiritual power was still peeping at him. Ning Shu was waiting to see when you would appear. Are you waiting for me? A voice sounded. Ning Shu turned his head. When he saw the person who spoke, his pupils constricted. He said calmly, it's you. The heart nodded. It's me. I discovered you a long time ago, but you didn't discover me. Discovered. The spiritual power had been peeping at him. Ning Shu thought it was someone else. This was someone he had forgotten. Now that he saw the heart, Ning Shu couldn't help but think of the fear of being controlled by him. Ning Shu said indifferently, you're also here to participate in the war. After not seeing him for a while, the heart had changed a lot. At least, it wasn't like before, where it directly wrapped its spiritual tentacles around him. Now, the heart looked like a normal person. However, the way it looked at him was still filled with resentment. Ning Shu suddenly laughed. The heart tilted its head and looked at Ning Shu. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing at you. Why do you hate me? Ning Shu spread his hands and said, we have nothing to do with each other. Why do you hate me? Chapter 3357. If you're trying to say that I abandoned you in a strange place, I'm sorry. I'm not responsible for you. It's none of my business whether you're afraid or not. You didn't tell me and arranged for me to go anywhere. You said that you're not responsible for me, but you're arranging my life at will, the heart said. Ha ha ha. Ning Shu clutched her stomach and laughed wildly. If you can pester me, why can't I get rid of you? Your bandit logic is really interesting. Don't forget that there was a river that cut through the entire mine, cutting off your luck and your path to adulthood. According to the situation at that time, you'll never be able to become a walking intelligent creature. I gave you a body. Have you ever thanked me? Please tell me. What right do you have to hate me? Ning Shu spread her hands and said, Don't tell me that I'm responsible for you because I gave you a body. I spent my energy to give you a body, and then I'll be responsible for you for the rest of your life. When she saw the mine, she naturally wanted to go to the center of the mine to see if there were any treasures. The center of the mine contained the energy of the entire mine. She had already paid the price for her greed. In order to survive, she gave up her heart and body. This could be said to be an equivalent exchange. She gave her heart and body in exchange for her life. However, after that, the heart kept pestering her and followed her everywhere. It tied an atomic bomb to her body. Ning Shu was not afraid of the heart at all now. Her mental strength had already taken shape. Even if they were to compete in mental strength, she would not be afraid. They would just hurt each other. Besides, Ning Shu could tell that the heart was here to settle the score. To settle the score of abandoning him. In this regard, Ning Shu just laughed. She would do the same thing again. Even if she was wrong, she would not repent. She was that determined. I don't want you to follow me. Bite me. Don't say that you have a fledgling complex. You're afraid of the outside world. Who hasn't been like that? So what if you're afraid? The heart was speechless. Why is she still so sharp-tongued? It was too different from what he had imagined. It was impossible to expect her to feel guilty about it. The heart could not help but ask, then don't you feel guilty at all? Don't you feel uneasy? Ning Shu thought for a moment. No, I'm just relieved because I've gotten rid of you. Heart, although Heart had seen a lot and matured a lot during this time, seeing Ning Shu like this, he could not help but feel stifled. He thought that she would be terrified to see her again. When he used his spiritual power to observe her, he saw her looking around with a displeased expression. He found it particularly interesting. Now that she saw him, she calmed down. Ning Shu went straight to the point and asked, Why are you looking for me this time? Previously, the heart could still kill her, but this time, it was impossible. Xian tilted her head and looked at Ning Shu. It's been so long, but you haven't missed me. Ning Shu. To be honest, I didn't. If you hadn't appeared, I would have forgotten about you. Heart, the truth is really hurtful. There's nothing to be hurtful about. It's the truth. It's not like our relationship has reached the point where we can be together forever. Don't act like you're hurt by me. Ning Shu did not understand. Why did all of them like to act like they were hurt by him? As long as things didn't go their way, they would feel wronged. There were many things that didn't go their way. It was more comfortable to be a bad person. What was the point of living if others were happy and you weren't? She always wanted to go along with the wishes of others and make others feel better, but she felt wronged. There was no such thing. How could she not understand something that even the little devil understood? Xian scratched her head in confusion. I've been thinking about you, but you don't even think about me. Do you know what they did to me? Ning Shu, not curious at all. Really? What did the silver-haired man do to the heart? Ning Shu said, I don't know. You don't have to tell me. Since the organization absorbed the heart, they would definitely teach it. In any case, in the process of receiving knowledge, some people would feel joy while others would feel pain. Since the heart had become a human, it must have learned something. It couldn't be ignorant all the time, right? Do you need anything? If not, can I leave now? Ning Shu asked. This meeting was not very pleasant. The first thing he did was peek at him. He could feel that the eyes on him were teasing him. Xian asked, "Are you that unwilling to see me?" Ning Shu said, "It's nice to see you. Goodbye." Ning Shu left in a flash. He was tired after the battle. He still had to deal with Xian, so he didn't have the energy. Anyway, Xian was already in the organization. There would be many chances to meet in the future. Sigh. Seeing Ning Shu leave just like that, Xian couldn't help but pout. He had been looking forward to meeting for a long time, but he left just like that. Seriously. Let's go back. The silver-haired man appeared in a flash and said to Xian. Didn't you say that after some time, I'll have been reborn and she'll be shocked when she sees me? Xian asked with a face full of displeasure. The silver-haired man. She wasn't shocked. She was shocked, but it was like seeing a ghost. This is a bit different from what I imagined. Xian rolled his eyes and said. The silver-haired man. You're probably not good enough now. Xian, how can I be good enough? I'm good-looking and have great abilities. She was so eager to throw me away before, but now I'm very independent. Why are you still like this? The silver-haired man probably didn't care about this kind of thing. He said directly, keep working hard and make yourself more outstanding. Xian was a bit annoyed. I'm already very outstanding. Xian followed behind the silver-haired man with a puzzled expression. He probably despaired of women. Ning Shu returned to the system space and placed the law imprint on the coffee table. Ning Shu stared at the Law of Thunder imprint and felt a little depressed. Very depressed. He had snatched a law imprint, but she might not be able to use it at all. Because this was thunder, a thing of extreme yang. Not to mention that it was a great test for the soul, she also had the law of wood. These two things conflicted with each other. Plants and trees were afraid of fire and thunder. What if these two things resisted each other? Obviously, the law of wood was not as strong as the law of thunder. But if this law of thunder imprint couldn't be used, he could only look at it. This was very depressing. Ning Shu took out a book from the bookshelf and looked it up to see if two laws could exist at the same time. Right, didn't Ah-Wan have a lot of law imprints on her? He didn't believe that they were all mutually reinforcing. Chapter 3358. It was most appropriate to ask Ah-Wan about the law imprint. After all, one had more than 10 imprints. Ning Shu opened the chat system and asked Ah-Wan about the conflict of laws. Ah-Wan said, there's no conflict. They can coexist. But when using them, don't use conflicting laws at the same time. As for how many imprints you have, it doesn't matter. Ning Shu touched his chin and thought. This meant that she could also comprehend the fire law as long as she didn't use water and fire at the same time. This meant that she could fuse the law imprint into her soul. Ning Shu took the law imprint to the world of reincarnation. Since she was going to fuse it, she had to find a safe place. The world of reincarnation was her territory, so it was relatively safe. In the system space, she didn't know what would happen if she fused it. If the thunder roared, the system space would be destroyed. Ning Shu went to the world of reincarnation and took out the silver lightning-like imprint. She swallowed her saliva and didn't dare to fuse it. Before she fused it, the imprint flashed with traces of lightning and made sizzling sounds like electricity. If all the lightning was used on her soul, how painful would it be? Moreover, it was the thunder law. She had inherited the strongest power of lightning. The nine heavens' divine lightning was on a completely different level. People who could comprehend the thunder law were all amazing people. She wanted to take advantage of the situation and directly use the law imprint. She might not be able to withstand it. Ning Shu thought about it and felt that she had to be careful. What if something went wrong? She still wanted to adapt to the power of lightning. Ning Shu found the thunder beast lying not far from the rebirth pool. The thunder beast was flashing with lightning. This kind of thunder beast was born with lightning. She wanted to try the lightning of the thunder beast. If she could withstand it, she could try fusing with the imprint. If she couldn't even withstand the lightning of the thunder beast, she would definitely be finished. She might even be struck by the lightning and her soul would scatter. Come, strike me with lightning. Ning Shu said to the thunder beast. The thunder beast breathed heavily through its nostrils, completely ignoring Ning Shu, and directly pointed its fat butt at Ning Shu. Or perhaps he didn't dare to strike Ning Shu. Ning Shu stretched out his hand and patted its fat butt. The lightning on the thunder beast's body immediately passed to Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu suddenly felt pain spread throughout his body. It was painful and numb, and it was also very hot. He didn't know if it was because of the heat or the electricity. In any case, his soul was in pain. Thunder was the power of the extreme yang. It restrained the soul and cut through the body like a knife. Ning Shu felt as if his soul was about to be torn apart. Ning Shu quickly withdrew his hand and shook his numb hand. Damn, it's so uncomfortable. If that's the case, then the lightning law imprint will probably turn her into ashes in an instant. Ning Shu took a deep breath and said to the thunder beast, "Use your purple lightning to bombard me and see if I can withstand it." The thunder beast snorted through its nostrils and shook its head, refusing Ning Shu's shameful action. Ning Shu said, "Come on, let me try. I don't want a big lump, just a little bit will do." The purple lightning was more explosive than ordinary energy. The thunder beast spat out a fist-sized purple lightning and sprayed it at Ning Shu. Ning Shu's soul was trembling. He tried his best not to dodge and planned to resist the purple lightning. With a boom, Ning Shu could feel a huge energy exploding in his body. His soul was about to explode and he was a little out of control. Ning Shu quickly said, "Take it back, take it back." His soul was about to explode. The energy was too scary. The thunder beast opened its mouth and swallowed the lightning back. Ning Shu snorted and wagged his tail like an obedient puppy. Ning Shu endured the pain of his soul being torn apart and didn't blame it. He wanted to test his endurance. However, Ning Shu overestimated his soul. Not to mention that his soul power was weak now, his soul strength hadn't increased yet. He still had to eat the kidney-strengthening fruit. He would try to fuse with the thunder law imprint when his soul was stronger. His current endurance was not enough. If he forced himself, his soul would collapse. The loss would outweigh the gain. Anyway, the law imprint was just there. He could take it whenever he wanted to use it. At the same time, this was a good thing. He didn't feel much when he fused with other law imprints. For an offensive law like the thunder law, if it was so powerful to him, it would be even more effective against others. He would fuse with this imprint sooner or later. There was no hurry. Speaking of which, there were many things on her that could restrain the soul. First of all, there was the filth in her body. This filth that was extracted from the soul could pollute the soul. The God-striking whip could also restrain the soul better. Not only did it hurt, but the God-striking whip could also absorb the other party's energy. Now that he had the thunder law, if he were to fight, he could directly strike with lightning and catch the other party off guard. He would feel dizzy or dazed for a moment. Just a moment was enough. In a fight between experts, the situation could be changed in an instant. Very good. If anyone provoked her in the future, she would throw this set at them. It would definitely be unbearable. It could be disgusting. Especially the soul pollution. If the soul was polluted, the soul would definitely be stripped. It would be as painful as being cut into pieces. Moreover, half of the soul power would be lost. Ning Shu had never used this thing. This method was very disgusting. Unless it was a last resort, Ning Shu didn't want to use this kind of thing. Using this kind of thing was like making a mortal enemy. As a mission enforcer, he had to ensure the purity of his soul. If he didn't have the ability to overcome the emotional disturbance caused by the filth, then he shouldn't let his soul be polluted. If he couldn't even resist the lightning of the thunder beast, Ning Shu didn't have any hope. He couldn't fuse with the thunder law at all. Ning Shu put away the thunder law and touched the thunder beast's fat butt. Sure enough, it was electrocuted to the point that its hair stood up. Probing on the edge of danger, the thieving chicken was exciting. Ning Shu went to take a look at the skeletons. These skeletons were lying in rows on the ground, motionless. Ning Shu was shocked. Lying on the ground like this, could it be that these skeletons couldn't take it anymore? Looking carefully, the skeletons all looked the same. Ning Shu couldn't recognize who was who. He could only shout, "Zhu Jun, where are you?" Zhu Jun got up from the ground and asked, "What's wrong?" Ning Shu asked, "What are you guys doing?" Lying in a row like this made Ning Shu think that these skeletons were dead. Zhu Jun said, "We're just too tired. Everyone is lying down to rest. The skeletons will also be tired." Ning Shu said, "Then you guys continue to rest." This time, it was really all thanks to the skeletons blocking in front of them. Chapter 33:59. Zhu Jun said, "This time, some of the skeletons were injured. Their bones were damaged. They won't be able to fight for a while." Ning Shu said, "It's okay. Rest more. Anyway, the war was over. If there were no accidents, the bugs would have been wiped out. He just didn't know if the little mouse was dead. Even if it was alive, it must be alone." Li Wen's departure had cost him a lot. Not wanting to disturb the skeleton's rest, Ning Shu returned to the system space and asked the system, "There's a reward for this war, right?" The main system didn't say anything. "There should be a reward," Dan Qing said. Ning Shu put the law imprint in the box and placed it on the bookshelf. This thing probably wouldn't be used for a long time. He had to wait until his soul became strong enough to withstand the lightning strike. Ning Shu took out the ultimate martial art. He just wanted to go in and take a look. He didn't expect to be able to go in this time. The situation in the ultimate martial art had changed drastically. Previously, there was still the law of nothingness. He didn't expect the law of nothingness to disappear. Instead, it was replaced by a gray world. Clouds of fog blocked people's vision. Ning Shu didn't know what happened to the world after absorbing the two energy stones. However, the disappearance of the law of nothingness made Ning Shu very happy. Who knew the principle behind it? However, the law of nothingness was gone. He didn't need to worry about the law of nothingness anymore. This was quite good. He didn't need to collect star stones anymore. This ticking time bomb was gone just like that. Ning Shu couldn't believe it. If it only changed its form, would the law of nothingness still be dangerous? Could it swallow and assimilate other things? Ning Shu was a little confused. He didn't understand the current situation. He probably wouldn't know what was going on if he asked the silver-haired man. After all, the evolution of the world was ever-changing. No one could figure out how the world changed. Ning Shu stood in the gray world, and her vision was very low. She was surrounded by clouds of gray fog. Could this fog be the law of nothingness? Now, it was no longer in the form of water. Instead, it had transformed into something else, which was mist. However, the law of nothingness did not devour or assimilate her. Did that mean that the law of nothingness was no longer dangerous? No matter what, this was a world worth being happy about. Originally, he had thought that his peerless martial arts were about to be crippled. After all, with the law of nothingness inside, it could break out of the world at any time. Now that things had changed, the law of nothingness was nowhere to be found. Ning Shu felt that the peerless martial art was really strong. After experiencing so many twists and turns, it still existed. It was probably the power of faith that allowed the peerless martial art to persist until now. Ning Shu was not worried at all about how the world would evolve in the future. You might not be able to withstand it, but other things were not a problem at all. Even if there were problems, he was not afraid. Ning Shu gave this peerless martial art a thumbs up. Peerless martial arts were the truly powerful things. The law of nothingness was nothing. Back then, Jingqing had nearly refined the law of nothingness. If it wasn't for the granduncle, even if she was pulled out, no one would be able to do anything to Jingqing. Jingqing had already taken the law of nothingness for her own use. Speaking of which, the law of nothingness was also a kind of law. Not many people could comprehend and master this kind of law because those who were slightly weaker would be instantly devoured and assimilated. Unlike other laws, one could slowly comprehend them for a long time. This was not the case. If one's strength was weak, they would be gone. There was no starting over at all. Pulling out Jingqing, exhausting him, and then throwing him into the law of nothingness. Who knew how long it would take to refine him? Now it seemed that there was a limit to the devouring and assimilation of the law of nothingness. It was not so invincible that it could devour everything. When one was strong to a certain level, they could not be devoured and assimilated. Even if they were to be devoured and assimilated, it would take time. In turn, it might be controlled by others. Ning Shu released his mental power, wanting to see how big this world had become. However, when he released his mental power, it was as if it was being devoured. He could not release it far. Perhaps it had already been released far away, but the mental power situation was the same. Everywhere was gray. There was no difference. The peerless martial arts world was quiet. It was even dead silent. There was no sound at all. It was probably chaos. Everything was born from chaos. Ning Shu felt that energy bodies were really good things. The world had undergone such a change after absorbing 2 energy bodies. If he absorbed more energy bodies, there might be other benefits. However, energy bodies were too precious. It wasn't something that could be found just because he wanted to. The organization had a lot of manpower and material resources to look for energy bodies. She was able to get 2 of them because of Li Wen. Now that the insects had been destroyed, Li Wen had disappeared. The chances of her finding energy bodies were very small. Even if she found them, they might be snatched away or taken away by someone else. After all, there were too many dangers in the void. He felt that many races needed such things. It was not only the organization. He felt that other races were also collecting them. Until now, Ning Shu did not understand what they were. Ning Shu decided to go for a stroll in the void when he had nothing to do. If he encountered any danger, he would run. It would be best if he could find something. If not, he would just take it as familiarizing himself with the void's environment. Moreover, there were many delicious and energy-rich things in the void. These things probably grew in the void and absorbed the void's energy. The energy contained in the fruits was very beneficial to the soul. Ning Shu walked around the world. However, he felt like he was walking in the same place. Since the world was fine, he could finally put down the big stone in his heart. Now, there was nothing to worry about. He would not think about abandoning the peerless martial arts so easily. To him, the peerless martial arts were not just a source of power. It was also a kind of feeling. This was something to be happy about. He had to celebrate it. Let's do a mission and relax. Ning Shu took out the peerless martial arts. The system said to Ning Shu, the reward has been issued. 20,000 merit points have been sent to your account. Ning Shu was speechless. Just 20,000 merit points. Are you sure there are no other rewards? Ning Shu could not believe his ears. He only got 20,000 merit points after risking his life. He could get 100,000 merit points for processing star stones each time. There was no danger in processing star stones. Fighting a war was like hanging one's head on the belt. In the end, he only got 20,000 merit points for surviving. 20,000 merit points was equivalent to nothing. What a scary reward. At the very least, the reward this time was a physical object. Last time, the reward was an immunity. Chapter 3360. Probably because of Ning Shu's tone, the system said in disdain, actually, it's already quite a lot. Think about it, with so many people participating in the war, how much is 20,000 for each person? Moreover, protecting the country is only a duty, it's everyone's duty. Even if they don't pay, it's fine. But if they do, it shows that the organization is humane. Even if the organization doesn't pay, what can you do but watch? Take it easy. Systems like us don't have any merit at all, but if our mission enforcers die in the war, we'll be formatted as well. Actually, we're the ones who are wronged. Ning Shu said, if we're formatted, at least we'll still be alive in the mission. If we die, we'll really die. Formatting erases our memories, but we'll still be alive. The system said. I think you've misunderstood something about the system. Only when the mission enforcers die in battle can we live. However, if the mission enforcers are killed, or if the mission enforcers fail and die, we will die as well. Because our souls are bound, we live and die with the mission enforcers. Ning Shu asked in confusion, if our souls are bound, why won't the system die when we die in the war? There's a protection mechanism. Death in the war is unavoidable. If it's not the mission enforcer's fault, the system doesn't have to die with the mission. Dan Qing said. Ning Shu nodded and said, let's do the mission. The war was over, they could do a mission and rest. If they didn't do a mission, they might be dragged to deal with the star stones again. It would be better to do a mission than deal with the star stones. The system said, okay, then I'll choose a harder mission. The system knew that after the war, people would be tired. It did a simple mission to mediate. Ning Shu opened the system exchange store and exchanged for some fasting pills and water. These were all necessities. Other things didn't need to be exchanged, but these things had to be exchanged. It had become a habit and an obsessive-compulsive disorder. They had to be exchanged before doing a mission. Ding dong. The chat system rang. Ning Shu blinked. Who was looking for her? Could she pretend she didn't hear it? It didn't feel like something good was going to happen. Maybe they wanted her to do something again. She only wanted to do quests now. She loved doing quests. No one could stop him from completing his quest. Ning Shu clicked on it and saw that the Cheongsam man was looking for her. Seeing that it was the Cheongsam man, Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief. It was fine as long as it wasn't the big shots looking for her. Basically, those big shots didn't have any good intentions when they looked for her. The man in the Cheongsam looked for Ning Shu because he wanted to go to the underground river in the Void World. He said that he wanted the World Tree to absorb the energy there. She asked Ning Shu if he was free. If he was, they could go together. Ning Shu thought about it and decided to go. Now that the World Tree had digested all the energy it had absorbed, he would let it absorb some more. Ning Shu went to the Cheongsam man's restaurant to find him. The Cheongsam man could not construct a spatial tunnel, so he could only wait for Ning Shu. Speaking of nomological space, the Cheongsam man regretted not comprehending it earlier. Now that there was no nomological space, it would be many times more difficult to comprehend it. Therefore, when the Chongsam man saw that Ning Shu had constructed a spatial tunnel, his eyes were filled with envy. If he had known, he would have comprehended the spatial nomological space earlier. It wasn't that he hadn't comprehended the spatial nomological space before, but he didn't get the main point. He always felt that there was still a lot of time. However, who would have thought that the nomological space would disappear just like that? It was basically a fool's dream to want to comprehend it now. The Chongsam man felt that he might never be able to comprehend the spatial nomological space in this lifetime. Ning Shu rubbed salt into his wound. You'd better comprehend the spatial nomological space quickly. After all, you can only go wherever you want after comprehending the spatial nomological space. Only after comprehending the spatial nomological space can you be considered a big shot. After all, if he couldn't even travel 1,000 miles in one step, how could he be considered a powerhouse? It was completely fake. The Chongsam man was speechless. Ning Shu constructed a spatial tunnel and arrived at the underground river. He threw the World Tree and the Peerless Martial Arts book into the underground river to absorb the energy. The Chongsam man, why did you throw the book into the river? The Chongsam man felt that the book was a little familiar. He seemed to have seen it somewhere before. Oh right, when she first fought against the worms, she had taken out this thing. The Chongsam man asked, "Is your book a weapon?" Ning Shu shook his head. "No, it's a world. It's not a weapon." It was possible to consider it a weapon. After all, peerless martial arts could be cultivated and one could accumulate the power of faith. The Chongsam man, apart from the World Tree, you actually constructed other worlds. A book was a world. That was a bit of a loss. Ning Shu said, "This is the carrier of a world in the past. At that time, I hadn't found the World Tree yet, so I wanted to use it to construct a world. If he constructed a world, his right to speak would increase." Now that he thought about it, he was too naive. There was always a higher mountain. He thought that he could wait until he reached the top, but he realized that the top was just as so. He didn't expect it at all. The Chongsam man said, "Oh." Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. His expression was a little wretched. She looked really ugly. Ning Shu looked at her with some disdain. What the hell? Ning Shu was very disdainful. It was really speechless for a man to be so gossipy. The Chongsam man asked, "Are you having an affair with the judges?" Ning Shu asked calmly, "Why do you say that? What do you mean by having an affair?" The Chongsam man, "I heard that you once left the organization and were invited back. You're really something. How did they invite you back?" "They didn't kill you but invited you back." Ning Shu's face was unfathomable. "Who did you hear that from? There's no such thing at all." Ning Shu didn't believe that the main system and the senior Grand Elder would talk about it for no reason. Moreover, this matter would damage their dignity. They would only talk about it if they ate too much. Ning Shu remained suspicious of the Chongsam man's source of information. The Chongsam man patted Ning Shu's shoulder. "Please don't question my source of information. There are no walls in the world that don't leak. As long as something has been done, there will be traces. Tell me. You're really secretive. I hang out with you for no reason, but I don't know that you're actually so powerful." The Chongsam man said, "If you're not really capable, then you must have an affair with the judges." Ning Shu's expression was one of disdain. "Why don't you have an affair with the main system? Why do you have to have an affair with the judges?" "Because the judges have the right to decide the fate of every mission taker. The main system serves the organization. It has the right to make decisions, but it's not as big as the judges." Chapter 3361. Ning Shu suddenly felt that he was very lucky to have a world of samsara. Sometimes, building a world did not mean that the future was bright. There would be new problems. Every social class had its own troubles. Also, connecting to the world of samsara did not mean that he could rest assured. If the world of samsara collapsed, he would have to connect to another world of samsara. Otherwise, the creatures in the world would not be able to reincarnate. The man in the cheongsam said to Ning Shu, "Didn't you get a law imprint? Are you selling it?" Ning Shu asked, "Is there anyone who wants to buy it?" The man in the cheongsam nodded. "Someone found me and asked me to be the middleman. If you sell it, I will reply to him. If you don't sell it, I will tell him the truth." Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. News spread really fast. How did someone know that she had gotten the Thunder Law imprint? Ning Shu asked, "Is it a man or a woman?" The man in the cheongsam said, "It's a woman. She's acting coquettishly with me. I can't stand it anymore, so I came to ask you." "I'm just asking. Don't sell it for my sake." Ning Shu rolled his eyes. "How much do you think you have? You're thinking too much. You're really a person who can't stand beauty. The girl just rubbed you a little and you surrendered." Ning Shu looked at him in disdain. He wondered what kind of girl the cheongsam man's girlfriend was. It was a pity that he could not meet the cheongsam man's girlfriend. He really wanted to know her. If his girlfriend was still alive, she would probably beat him up if she saw how flirtatious the cheongsam man was. He would read a girl's palm for no reason. "It's just a casual question. It's not up to you whether you sell it or not. I've asked. You can't blame me if you don't want to." The man in the cheongsam had always been like this. There was no need to refuse a simple question. Moreover, he had taken precautions in advance. Even if others did not sell it, it had nothing to do with him. Ning Shu said, "This girl seems to have done her homework. She knows that you have a good relationship with me and asked you to persuade me. It's because I have a good relationship with all the law incarnations. I'm the head of the law incarnations. I'm the law of time." Ning Shu. "What's the use of the law of time? Can it allow you to fly?" The man in the cheongsam said. "I can make someone age instantly." "Can you do that? Even their soul can be weakened or even destroyed. Can you do that?" Ning Shu shrugged. "So what if I'm old? It's not like I'm going to die. Can you teleport? Can you construct a spatial tunnel?" The two of them were at each other's throats. Ning Shu said, "I will not sell the lightning law imprint. You can just tell her directly." Ning Shu still wanted to keep this law imprint for his own use. Such an offensive law imprint was very rare. The laws she knew, such as water, earth, wood, and prophecy, were all relatively soft laws and could not achieve the effect of a critical hit. However, lightning arts could. Powerful lightning could directly strike the soul and scatter it. Lightning was the bane of almost all living beings. This was especially true for creatures like spirits, who were even more fearful of lightning. "All right, I'll go back to her." The man in the cheongsam also knew that Ning Shu would not sell it. Lightning was not easy to comprehend, and it was a great test for the soul. If such a law was sold, it would be more lethal to others. Even the man in the cheongsam would not sell it. That little beauty would be disappointed. While chatting, the man in the cheongsam's world finally stopped absorbing energy. Ning Shu felt that the man in the cheongsam's world tree was a little underdeveloped and could not keep up with the pace. Her world tree was a seed, and the man in the cheongsam's world tree was already a small seedling. It was underdeveloped. Ning Shu and the man in the cheongsam returned to the restaurant. The man in the cheongsam said, "I'll treat you to a meal. Stay and eat something." The man in the cheongsam knew how to behave. Since he had asked Ning Shu for help, he must show some appreciation. Since someone was treating him, Ning Shu naturally had to stay and eat for free. The waiter pushed the door open and said to the man in the cheongsam, "Boss, the girl is here." The man in the cheongsam said to Ning Shu, "Just in time. You can meet the buyer. Ning Shu said, I haven't decided to sell it yet. Ning Shu followed the man in the cheongsam out of the private room and went downstairs. They went straight to a table where a little girl was sitting. The little girl was quite cute. When she saw the man in the cheongsam, her eyes sparkled. She looked very cute. Just by looking at her appearance, he felt that the little girl was very cute. The man in the cheongsam said, This is the owner of the Law of Thunder. The man in the cheongsam introduced Ning Shu. Ning Shu asked her gently, How do you know that I have the imprint of the Law of Thunder? Are you the owner of the imprint of the Law of Thunder? The girl looked up and down at Ning Shu. Her eyes were round, and there was some baby fat on her face. She looked young and petite, which made her look even younger. Ning Shu was also small, but he was thin. He was not as fleshy as the girl, and he looked older than the little girl. However, when she looked at Ning Shu from head to toe, her gaze was as if she was weighing meat on a chopping board. Such a gaze was really unpleasant. With the other party's attitude, Ning Shu became expressionless. The little girl laughed and said to Ning Shu, I heard that you have the imprint of the Law of Thunder. Can you sell it to me? The price is negotiable. You can name any price. Ning Shu shook his head. I don't plan to sell it. This little girl looked young, but she was a super mission enforcer. After all, only super mission enforcers could enter the law space, and they could only enter after passing a trial. Although this little girl was young, super mission enforcers had done many missions and were experienced and knowledgeable. When the little girl heard Ning Shu's rejection, a murderous look flashed across her face. However, this murderous look flashed by, and the little girl still looked soft. She reached out and grabbed Ning Shu's hand, acting like a spoiled little girl. Enchantment, sell it to me, okay? Ning Shu had goosebumps all over his body. It was as if he had been electrocuted. Such a cute girl was acting spoiled with him. Was he really sure that he would fall for it? So this was how the cheongsam man was tortured. She was indeed a tormenting little demon. Ning Shu withdrew his hand. The other party was cold, and holding her hand was not very comfortable. Little girl, I'm not selling it. Ning Shu said. The little girl frowned and pouted her pink lips. She looked at Ning Shu with resentment in her eyes. Ning Shu was a little dumbfounded. He had seen thousands of mission enforcers, but he had never seen such a sweet one. At least on the surface, it was sweet. Ning Shu was so sweet that his teeth hurt a little. Coupled with the mushy feeling, his whole body shook. Ning Shu glanced at the cheongsam man beside him. The cheongsam man stood a little far away, obviously not daring to come closer. To be honest, this kind of girl, even a woman like her could not stand it, let alone a man. Chapter 3363. Sister, think about it again. I said the price is negotiable. I can give you a very good price. The little girl said sweetly. Ning Shu still shook his head firmly. I'm sorry, but I'm really not selling. Ning Shu suspected that the little girl didn't understand him. She had already rejected him many times. Did she really think that it was okay to act coquettishly like this? Ning Shu didn't believe that a super mission enforcer was really sweet from the inside out. It was very likely that she was sesame glutinous rice ball, black on the inside and white on the outside. Ning Shu suddenly became interested. He looked at the little girl and wondered how she would act. Would she rely on corny people? Ning Shu had seen a noble and cold girl like Ah Wan. She had never met such a sweet girl among the mission enforcers. After experiencing so much, who would still be so sweet? Even if she was sweet, he didn't know if she was really sweet or not. When talking about benefits, it was useless to act coquettishly. She probably felt that it was useless to deal with Ning Shu using methods to deal with men. So the girl stopped acting like this and said to Ning Shu, I have a lot of things in my hands. You can have anything you want. If he really had so many good things, why would he want to buy the Thunder Law imprint from her? This was because he didn't want to comprehend it himself and wanted to have the power of law directly. Comprehending the power of law by himself was slow and difficult, but with the power of law, he had the power of law and could use the power of law. Although she was unfamiliar with it, it was no different from comprehending it on her own. Ning Shu asked, "What do you have to exchange with me?" "Energy bodies." She really wanted energy bodies now. Not only did ultimate martial arts need energy bodies, but it seemed like the world tree also needed energy bodies. If the world tree didn't have energy, it might not be able to form a living world. As long as you can say it, I have it. The girl's expression was very proud. She had collected a lot of treasures, just like how women collected gems or luxury goods. She had a lot of treasures. She didn't comprehend the laws because they were too difficult to comprehend. Especially now that there was no law space at all, it was even more difficult to comprehend. If the girl wanted to go up a level, she had to at least squeeze into the group of law incarnations and squeeze into a new class. But now, she couldn't comprehend the laws at all. Previously, it was a little difficult for her to comprehend the laws. Then, she heard that with a law imprint, one would possess the power of law. That was why she was tempted and wanted to get a law imprint. However, the law imprint would only be removed after the mission taker died. A law imprint that had already been imprinted on one's body could not be purchased. Only after asking around did he find out if there was anyone who had the imprint on their body. Moreover, it was the law of lightning. It was said that the law of lightning could not be fused quickly. After all, if one's soul was weak, it was very likely that the law imprint would instantly kill them. Through the layers of connections, the girl found the Cheongsam man and found out that the Cheongsam man was related to Ning Shu. Now that they had met, the girl's heart was pounding. Oh no, it was the feeling of being moved. He felt that he was about to obtain the law imprint. Ning Shu smiled and asked, "Do you have energy bodies?" "Energy bodies are born in the void. Do you have them?" "If you do, I'll trade with you." The girl, never heard of it. "Change it." The girl suspected that Ning Shu was deliberately saying something she had never heard of to reject her. Couldn't he be a little more sincere? "If you really can't do it, I can use merit to exchange with you," the girl said to Ning Shu. Merit? She didn't lack merit, only energy bodies. It was a waste of time to mess around with this girl. It was time to go back and do the mission. After all, she couldn't take out what she needed, and the law of lightning was also what she needed. If the other party really took out the energy body, Ning Shu felt that he might give up on the law of lightning imprint. Perhaps if another energy body came, his peerless martial arts might change again. In short, his peerless martial arts would develop in a good direction. Seeing that Ning Shu was indifferent, the girl panicked a little. Why did she feel that the other party was stubborn? She wasn't moved at all. Since temptation didn't work, then she would threaten him. Actually, it wasn't a threat. It was just to increase her bargaining chip. The girl said, "Actually, I'm very familiar with the judges. If you encounter any problems in the future, you can come to me." "Really?" Ning Shu sized her up and asked, "What's your relationship?" "Iron. If I commit a crime, can I avoid punishment?" "There are many judges." "Which one are you talking about?" Ning Shu felt that this girl was a little interesting. She said that she was familiar with the judges. On one hand, it was a threat. On the other hand, it was a promise. "I'm familiar with the judges. The judges have a destiny over the mission enforcers. If one really offended a judge, there were so many rules in the organization. Any one of them could pinch the mission enforcer's throat. There was no other way. The judges were that awesome." The girl said, "Tai Shu." Upon hearing the name Tai Shu, the man in the cheongsam raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. He suddenly smelled the scent of gossip. Ning Shu didn't know whether what she said was true or not. Even if she did know the senior uncle, could it be that Tai Shu was so free to find trouble with a mission enforcer? Ning Shu felt that this girl was really sweet. If she was talking about other judges, he believed that this girl could persuade them to find trouble with her. The girl looked at Ning Shu's disapproving expression and said, "You might not know, but Tai Shu is my elder brother." Another girl was born in the Sea of Law. Tai Shu and Jingqing had climbed out of the Sea of Law. They were brothers, but he hadn't heard that they had a sister. Moreover, the Sea of Law didn't have enough energy to give birth to another person. The girl frowned. Why did she feel that it was so difficult to talk to her? She couldn't understand what he was saying. Brother lover? Could it be that Tai Shu liked this kind of sweet girl? Interesting. The girl's face flushed red, and her eyes were full of lust. It's not what you think. This was obviously a cover-up. Ning Shu was a little vigilant. Could this girl really be the judge's sister? Would offending her mean offending the judge? It was hard to imagine an old monster who had lived for so long falling in love. However, even with such a relationship, the item was hers. He couldn't do anything if she chose not to sell it. The man in the cheongsam jokingly said to Ning Shu, "Why do you think there are so many scandals about the judges? It's normal to gossip about them." Public figures' gossip and melon seeds were especially delicious. Who would care about an ordinary person's gossip? Ning Shu felt that he had wasted enough time. He had already exchanged for the fasting pills. It was time to do the mission. He heard a piece of gossip. It was quite interesting. However, this girl was really sweet. The girl Ning Shu asked, "Sister, sell the item to me. I can agree to one condition." Chapter 33-64. Ning Shu asked, "What's the condition?" He wanted to see what this girl could offer, mainly because this girl said that she was related to the senior uncle. Ning Shu's scalp tingled when he heard the name. He had suffered too much in the hands of the senior uncle. She wouldn't go near him unless she had no other choice. She didn't want to get involved with him. The senior uncle was such a monster. This girl was amazing to be able to take him down. Ning Shu wanted to give this girl a thumbs up. Would a judge be gentler after falling in love? Ning Shu said to the man in the cheongsam, "Serve the dishes. Let's talk while we eat." The man in the cheongsam asked the waiter to serve the dishes and sat down. He felt that this scene was very interesting. The man in the cheongsam looked at the girl and asked, "Are you really the senior uncle's girlfriend? Don't talk nonsense." The girl looked like she wanted to say something but didn't. It was obvious that she was trying to cover it up. The man in the cheongsam had goosebumps all over his body. This girl's voice was too sweet, soft, and sticky. The man felt like he was being electrocuted. Such a girl was really sweet torture for a man. He kind of believed that the judge had been taken down by such a girl. When the dishes were served, Ning Shu took the lead to eat. He said to the girl, "I have a condition. If you can agree to it, I'll give it to you without your merit. How about that?" The girl's eyes lit up. "What condition?" "I can agree to any condition." The man in the cheongsam immediately sent a voice transmission to Ning Shu. "Don't be impulsive. The Thunder Law imprint is good stuff. Besides, this girl's words are exaggerated. If she's really the judge's sister, no matter if she's his biological sister or his lover, he should give her some benefits. Why would he need to buy the law imprint so bitterly? Since they were related, he should give her some benefits." Ning Shu said, "I know." Ning Shu said, "I have a request. Give me immunity." The girl was speechless. Immunity? Go to hell. Immunity was not an easy thing to obtain. Even if you did something that angered the heavens and the people, you could be exempted from it once. Sometimes, being directly killed was a kind of happiness. If one was tortured for tens of thousands of years, then one's mentality would collapse. Ning Shu felt that if he continued to wave like this, there would be a day when the soles of his feet would be roasted by candles. Therefore, he needed an exemption. At the same time, he could test this little girl. The little girl's face didn't look very good. Other requests, I guess. Grand uncle is the kind of cold-faced, black-mouthed, and unreasonable. Even if we have a relationship, he won't do this. Ning Shu shrugged. Then there's no other way. I only need this. Let's eat. Zhu Li is treating. Seeing that she had not gotten the result she wanted after so long, and that neither threats nor enticements were effective, a murderous aura and impatience gushed out from between her brows. You're just messing with me. Her voice was a little sharp, destroying the soft voice. I'll be direct with you. I need this law imprint. I'll try my best to persuade you. If you continue to be so stubborn, don't blame me for being impolite. The young lady placed her hands on her hips. Her spoiled appearance was very cute. Now, the dagger was revealed. Ning Shu ate calmly. Do you want to fight with me? I'm the least afraid of fighting. Ning Shu was a little surprised. This little girl was a little arrogant. She was completely acting like a rich young lady. The little girl stared at Ning Shu with round eyes. Do you really not know my identity? There were too many mission enforcers. A mission enforcer was like a grain of sand on the beach. It was not eye-catching at all. He really didn't know this girl's identity. Could it be that she was some rich young lady who came to the countryside to experience life? This little girl was very confident. Since she was arrogant, she had the right to be arrogant. Ning Shu shook his head and said, Miss, I really don't know your identity. If you have a frightening identity, please tell me. Ning Shu transmitted his voice to the Chongsam man. Do you know who this person is? Where did she come from? It seemed that the item in her hand was coveted by someone. This little girl really needed this item, and she was the vanguard. The Chongsam man shook his head. I really don't know. After all, there are so many mission enforcers. Moreover, they aren't law incarnations. I'm even less sure. She found me and then acted coquettishly. She pestered me until I couldn't take it. You saw it too. This girl is hard to deal with. She acted coquettishly and sweetly towards you. It wasn't like she was trying to get physical with you. If you were to be mean, then it would definitely be your fault. Actually, it was very annoying. Being pestered felt like being glued to you. Ning Shu put down his chopsticks and wiped his mouth with a handkerchief. Little girl, I'm busy. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. It was actually not bad to be able to eat a meal and then watch a little girl's performance. However, this little girl didn't reveal her identity, which made Ning Shu a little disappointed. Why didn't he reveal his incredible identity to scare her to death? The little girl was probably provoked by Ning Shu's arrogance. Although she wasn't very strong, because of her special identity, even those big shots were polite to her. Moreover, she was doing these missions purely for fun. I want your item because I think highly of you. Do you know how many people have given me things with both hands? The little girl's unruly personality was revealed. She was still so cute when she was being coquettish. Ning Shu said, so what if I don't give you anything? Bite me. Come on. Who wasn't a little fairy with a temper? The Chongsam man, fuck, these two women are fighting. Hurry up and leave. The Chongsam man walked away silently. Don't get involved in a battle between women. Otherwise, it might be very tragic. The little girl glared at him angrily. You've got guts. Ning Shu said, yes. If I want to kill you, it's just a matter of raising my hand. No matter what your background is, if you die, you die. As for what I'll suffer in the future, you won't be able to see it. The little girl was threatened by Ning Shu. She took 2 steps back and looked at Ning Shu warily. You wouldn't dare. Ning Shu pinched his fingers. Why wouldn't I dare? Ning Shu liked good-looking people, especially girls. They were beautiful and fragrant. However, if they threatened him, Ning Shu didn't care whether they were beautiful or not. When you came to me to ask for things, did you know who I was? She was very timid, but if she was forced into a corner, she had to be tough. I don't care what kind of person you are. As the little girl said this, she alerted the others very vigilantly, in case she was really destroyed by the other party. Hurry up, the little girl informed the others. Chapter 3365. The young lady was very afraid that Ning Shu was really muddle-headed and would really attack her. This person did not know her identity and was simply a rash person. Just as the other party had said, if she died, everything would be over. No matter what kind of punishment the other party received, she would not be able to see it. Ning Shu stood up and approached the young lady. The young lady was forced back into a corner by Ning Shu. There were walls everywhere and the young lady had nowhere to retreat. A look of panic appeared on her face. She looked like a little beauty who was being bullied by a bully. Ning Shu was a little curious. Do you really not have any power? In this situation, she could have used any small trick to leave, but she was like an ordinary person who was trapped in a corner with nowhere to escape. Was she that weak? Was she for real or was she pretending? Ning Shu was really confused. Don't come over. I am telling you, I won't fight you. The young lady's eyes were red. Ning Shu was speechless. What was going on? How boring. Ning Shu wanted to leave in a flash, but the space was locked. Ning Shu tried a few times but could not leave. In this place, only he could use the space law. The Cheongsam man did not know the space law, so it must be this young lady who had locked the space. Ning Shu wanted to laugh. The whole world owed this young lady a Best Actress award. She looked pitiful and did not have any fighting power, but in the end, she locked the space. He dared to say that this young lady did not know the power of the law. If she did not know that, she would die of laughter. Ning Shu found it interesting. This meant that she was going to lock her up. Ning Shu said, "Don't you know the space law? Why do you want the thunder law in print?" The young lady said, "What space law? I don't know what you're talking about." She had a treasure given to her by her uncle. He said that it was something to save her life. It could be used to escape or trap people. It seemed that this person could not escape. The young lady changed her trembling appearance and said unruly with her hands on her hips, "Hee, you can't leave, right?" When someone came to pick her up, this person could forget about living. The thunder law imprint would be hers. Hee, how delightful. Ning Shu sat down again and supported his chin with his hand. He was very calm. She knew that this little girl was waiting for someone. She also wanted to see who this little girl could call. Who was his backer? Sigh, there were always people coveting the things in her hands. Why did it feel like everyone in the world knew that she had a treasure in her hands? She had been keeping a very low profile. Why didn't she know that other people had treasures in their hands? The Cheongsam man was speechless. The atmosphere was a little tense. Were they going to fight in his restaurant again? The Cheongsam man felt that Ning Shu was a jinx, fighting in his restaurant for no reason. Could they change the location? Ning Shu sipped his tea leisurely as he waited for the girls backstage. When he heard this, Ning Shu was really shocked. Because the person who came was the silver-haired man. The silver-haired man slowly appeared with a sword in his hand. Brother Sang, you're here. The little girl's voice was very sweet. It was so sweet that Ning Shu and the Cheongsam man felt numb all over at the same time. It was especially ecstatic. Hearing the little girl's voice, the silver-haired man was very calm. He asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" The little girl immediately pointed at Ning Shu and complained to the silver-haired man, "She wants to kill me." The silver-haired man said, "Why would she want to kill you for no reason? Is she being naughty again? What's the matter this time?" Ning Shu saw that the silver-haired man was very tolerant of the little girl and his attitude was not bad. He could not help but be a little surprised. Who was this little girl? Was she really the grand uncle's girlfriend? If her strength was very good, but her strength was not. Was there something special about her? If that was the case, she had kicked a steel plate this time. The little girl said, "I want to buy the Thunder Law imprint, but she won't sell it to me no matter what. She even wants to attack me." The silver-haired man looked at Ning Shu and asked, "Are you selling your Thunder Law imprint?" Ning Shu was speechless. "Can I refuse?" "Of course, I refuse." Ning Shu shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, but I'm not selling my Thunder Law imprint. I'm not selling it to anyone. Even if the grand uncle came, she would not sell it. Since it was in her hands, it was hers. She had the right to dispose of it." The silver-haired man said to the little girl, "Look, she's not selling it. If she doesn't want to sell it, then forget it." The little girl immediately stomped her feet. "No, I want it. I also want to become very powerful. The Thunder Law is very cool. I like it." The little girl acted coquettishly to the silver-haired man. "Brother Sang, can you ask her to sell it to me? She wants an exemption. You can ask the grand uncle for one and give it to her." The silver-haired man was indifferent to the little girl's coquettishness. He said, "You can't be so willful, okay? Brother Sang, you only know how to scold me all day. What's wrong with me wanting to be strong?" The little girl grabbed the silver-haired man's arm and shook it, twisting her body into a fried dough twist. It was the first time Ning Shu had seen such a coquettish girl. However, he was also sure that this girl really had something to do with the higher-ups. The little girl had only called out once, and the main system had rushed over. She was really capable. Ning Shu felt that he did not have the ability to command the main system. He was already very lucky not to be controlled by the main system, let alone to control it. Ning Shu suddenly felt that his Thunder Law imprint was a little hot, and it was going to fly away at any time. Who asked this thing to be so good that someone wanted it? The silver-haired man was indifferent to the little girl's coquettishness. He said calmly, "No, go back." A trace of anger flashed between the little girl's eyebrows. "Why are you doing this? I just want a Thunder Law imprint, and you have to make things difficult for me. Brother Sang, our relationship is closer than yours with this woman. Why are you siding with her? In terms of closeness, you should be siding with me." Ning Shu felt that this little girl had a split personality. She would either act coquettishly to the point that he could not stand it, and then suddenly change her attitude. The silver-haired man was accused by the little girl, but his expression did not change. "What can you do if she doesn't want to sell it to you? You can't give her what she wants, and you don't have enough strength to kill her. Therefore, you have no fate with this Thunder Law imprint. Really, cold-faced ghost." The little girl ridiculed the silver-haired man. "I don't have it, but you do. Aren't these people your subordinates? They will listen to whatever you say. Just ask her to give it to me." The little girl was really unruly, and she was also very self-righteous. It made people want to laugh. The silver-haired man frowned. "Is it because you feel uncomfortable outside that you have to lock you up to feel better? Lock her up? Could this guy be a jailbreaker?" Chapter 3366. Hearing that the silver-haired man was going to lock her up again, the little girl's face changed. You bad guys, I'm obedient now, and you still want to lock me up. Ning Shu was speechless. So what was the identity of this little girl? Was she a prisoner or someone else? Looking at the silver-haired man's attitude, he knew the organization's attitude towards her. They didn't have the strength, but they would spend time on her. No matter who this little girl was, she had already wasted a lot of time. She said to the silver-haired man, "Can you remove the space imprisonment?" "I won't. If you don't give me the Thunder Law imprint today, don't even think about leaving." The little girl put her hands on her hips because she was too cute. She looked so cute with her hands on her hips. It would be strange if a good-looking person was worth forgiving. Ning Shu was more tolerant of good-looking people, especially girls. Ning Shu was more tolerant of good-looking people, especially girls. But now, she couldn't tolerate it. This was obviously climbing on her head to shit. She couldn't tolerate it. So what if she was related to the organization? She even crippled the senior uncle's brother's arm. Although this arm might have grown out now, it could still deal with this girl with schizophrenia. She didn't know if she could cripple one of her arms. A beautiful girl without an arm really didn't look good. Ning Shu said, "You can't even give me what I want. Don't you understand the equivalent exchange? I have the right to choose not to sell." The little girl put her hands on her hips and said, "But you have no right now, don't you know?" Ning Shu looked confused. "Why don't I have the right to what I want?" "Because my relationship is stronger than yours. If you want to mix well in the organization, you have to pay an appropriate price." The little girl really learned how to be a prodigal daughter. This was the so-called taking advantage of one's power to bully others. The little girl said, "I'm bullying you, I'm bullying you. I have power to rely on, but you don't. You deserve it." The Cheongsam man coughed and said to Ning Shu, "If you really can't, you can give up this imprint. After all, the main system is here." Ning Shu's mouth twitched. To be honest, she wasn't afraid of anyone now. She didn't have power to rely on, but she could kill people. What a simple matter. If he had the ability, this little girl wouldn't die. She was convinced. Perhaps because Ning Shu's eyes were too sharp, the little girl hid behind the silver-haired man and said, "Look at her. She wants to kill me. You can't let her go." The silver-haired man said, "All right, stop fooling around. Let's go back." After being rejected by the silver-haired man time and time again, the little girl was already very impatient. "Can't you do something that makes me happy? The consequences of my anger are very serious." The silver-haired man said indifferently, "Then you have to think about the consequences of going berserk." "What consequences?" "I'll just be locked up by you again. I can't go anywhere. I want to have power when I'm awake. The law of lightning imprint is the first power I want, but you can't satisfy me." The little girl's expression became aggrieved again. His change in attitude came as fast as a tornado. The speed at which this little girl changed her face was simply too much for the eyes to take in. Ning Shu was speechless. He said to the silver-haired man, "Can you let him go? I really have something to do. You guys can find another place to talk." He felt that this girl also had a past entanglement with the organization. She had no power when she was awake, but she had power when she went berserk. Could it be that she was a berserk loli? He hoped that she could go berserk faster now. The sooner she went berserk, the better. The little girl's eyes were red with anger. She was angry at Ning Shu and the silver-haired man. She pointed at the silver-haired man. You just want to make me go berserk and then lock me up. You're too bad. I want to find the grand uncle. None of you can leave today." Her eyes were red as if blood could seep out of them. Her pupils shrunk as she bared her sharp teeth. Her face also became ferocious. It seemed that she was going to go berserk at any moment. Ning Shu looked at the little girl. Was this girl also not human? Not human. Once the power of the berserk increased, she would lose her rationality and become very ugly. Why were there so many non-human creatures? The silver-haired man saw that the little girl was about to go berserk. His expression was very calm. The little girl's face was twisted into a ball. She was probably fighting in her heart. In the end, she regained her calm appearance. Hee hee, you just want to see me go berserk. I won't go berserk. The silver-haired man said indifferently, very good. You can still control your emotions. You didn't become a pig. Pig? Ning Shu blinked. Was this the same kind of pig as the one she was talking about? Was this girl's original body a pig? Suddenly, he couldn't look directly at the little girl's face. What pig? I'm not a pig. I'm a titan, a titan. The little girl jumped up. Don't compare me with a pig. It's an insult to me. Titan. Was it the gods in Greek mythology? No, I'm not a titan. I'm a giant. A titan is too low level, the little girl said. Alright, all of you Inhumans have one. It was really annoying. The silver-haired man didn't seem to be here to solve the problem at all. He was just watching the fire burning across the river. Ning Shu didn't know what he meant. A giant? A giant that lived in the void? There were simply too many gigantic creatures in the void. Was this little girl born in the void? The man in the Cheongsam said to Ning Shu telepathically, looks like this little girl is very awesome. Thinking of a little girl acting coquettishly and then suddenly turning into a berserk giant, that scene was really ecstatic. He couldn't accept it at all. Ning Shu. I don't care who I am. I have to go on a mission. How long would the spatial confinement last? What was wrong with the silver-haired man? He didn't take this berserk loli away, nor did he release the spatial confinement. Ning Shu tried several times, but he couldn't break the spatial confinement at all. Maybe it was because his understanding of spatial laws wasn't profound enough. Ning Shu felt that the man in the Cheongsam was waiting for the girl to go berserk so that he could provoke her. Clearly, this little girl was also controlling herself not to go berserk. A creature born in the void was actually interested in a nomological imprint. The nomological imprint wasn't very lethal to creatures in the void. It wasn't very effective against insects. It felt like throwing a firecracker. The explosion might cause a giant some pain, but it definitely wasn't life-threatening. Maybe the thunder laws were more powerful. Ning Shu felt that the silver-haired man was using him as a tool to provoke the little girl into going berserk. Would this little girl be able to leave if she went berserk? What kind of sin did she commit? Didn't she say that all non-human creatures were trouble? Chapter 3367. Ning Shu looked at the silver-haired man sitting on the side and winked at him. The silver-haired man saw Ning Shu blink but didn't respond. What's going on? Give me a hint. Why are you keeping me here? The silver-haired man said to the little girl indifferently, okay, leave if you've had enough. The little girl crossed her arms, raised her chin, and said, I'm not leaving today. I won't leave until I get the Thunder Law imprint. She was shameless. The silver-haired man said, do you want to call the grand-uncle over to watch your performance? Don't use him to scare me. I'm his woman. He can't kill me. The little girl curled her lips and said to Ning Shu, if you give it to me, we can be friends. There are many benefits to being friends with me. Have you thought about it? You can also be friends with the race behind me. If you have any problems, just come to me. This is a good time to make friends. After all, some races are naturally stronger than humans. Ning Shu was speechless. What kind of favor? Ning Shu didn't feel that he was really offering something with both hands. There was no such thing as a favor. Instead of getting an illusory favor, Ning Shu felt that it was better to integrate with the Thunder Law imprint himself. His strength would increase, and he wouldn't need to ask others for help when he encountered something. Moreover, if the other party didn't acknowledge it, there was nothing he could do. Ning Shu shook his head and said, "Sorry, I also have the Thunder Law. I can't give this to you. I told you from the beginning that I don't want to exchange it with you." The little girl's eyes turned red again. Obviously, she wasn't a patient person. She was very unhappy after being rejected repeatedly. It seemed that she would get whatever she wanted. Suddenly, one day, she couldn't get what she wanted. She felt wronged and angry. After giving so many promises, the other party was still unafraid of boiling water. The little girl couldn't help but go berserk. She raised her head and screamed sharply. A powerful force erupted from her body. This force was so strong that all the tables and chairs in the hall were annihilated into ashes. Some weaker mission takers were almost shocked out of their wits by this force. They wanted to escape but found that the space had been sealed. They couldn't return to the system space at all. All he could do was hide in a corner, trembling in fear as he watched Lolita transform. After the transformation, the little girl's face was much more ferocious, and her body had also become much larger. There was only killing intent in her blood-red eyes. Just looking at those blood-red eyes was enough to make people tremble in fear. After going berserk, the loli also became much uglier. Her body was covered with a layer of cuticle-like scales, which had a strong defensive power. It would allow the giant, who only knew how to kill, to better protect himself. It was impossible to tell if the giant's hoarse voice belonged to a man or a woman. It no longer had the sweet feeling from before, but it was still very sexy. Especially after becoming a giant, that place had changed a lot. Ning Shu was locked onto by the raging loli. In her eyes, there was only Ning Shu and no one else. She leaped forward and pressed down on Ning Shu with the force of Mount Tai. The worst thing was that Ning Shu's eyes couldn't move away from Lolita's boobs. There was only one thought in his mind. She was really big. Ning Shu also felt that his focus was a little strange, but he couldn't control his eyes. Especially when she leaped and jumped, the fluctuations made people unable to help but focus on it. Ning Shu was a little speechless. He didn't want it to be like this either. Ning Shu, who had been locked onto, couldn't dodge no matter how hard he tried. He only had eyes for her. Moreover, the lethality was really great. A punch from him even cracked the ground. Ning Shu clenched his fist and collided with the giant's. Fist against fist, the result was that Ning Shu was sent flying. He was directly sent flying. And it was very painful. It seemed that a head-on confrontation was rather irrational. Ning Shu took out the god-beating whip and whipped it at the giant. Pa, pa, pa. The god-beating whip was very powerful. Moreover, it was born in the void. It was more effective against creatures in the void. Even if Lolita's body was covered with a layer of keratin-like defense, she still felt pain when the whip hit her. However, because she was raging, even if there was a mountain of knives and a sea of fire in front of her, she still charged at Ning Shu without hesitation. If the giant's body was too big, its movements would be restricted. However, this giant's body was very big, but its speed was very fast. It even left afterimages. Throughout the whole process, Lolita stared at Ning Shu and ignored everyone else. Ning Shu saw the silver-haired man sitting there leisurely and even drinking tea. He was suddenly unhappy. He jumped directly to the silver-haired man and hid behind him. "You have to control her. She's crazy now," Ning Shu said while hiding behind the silver-haired man. Lolita jumped over and raised her fist to hit Ning Shu and the silver-haired man. She only had eyes for Ning Shu. She did not care if others were affected by her. The book in the silver-haired man's hand floated up and blocked Lolita's attack. It was just a book, but Lolita couldn't get close to it. Lolita was fighting against the book like a madwoman, but the book just floated quietly in the air, letting the wind blow and the rain hit it. It was like a rock, unmoving. Ning Shu sat down and poured himself a cup of tea. Hiding behind the silver-haired man was the right choice. Any berserk had a time limit. Now, he just had to wait for Lolita to calm down. Ning Shu asked the silver-haired man, "Why did you let such a dangerous person out?" The silver-haired man did not answer. He just drank his tea leisurely. Gradually, Lolita began to feel tired. Her attacks were not as fierce as before. It was obvious that she was about to regain her sanity. The silver-haired man was probably waiting for the girl to make a mistake. Once she made a mistake, he would have an excuse. Soon, the scarlet in the girl's eyes began to fade. Her body also began to shrink. She returned to her previous appearance of a cute little girl. Her face was a little ugly. She was very dissatisfied with the silver-haired man. "Stupid Sang Liang, you're actually protecting her." The silver-haired man said, "Didn't you promise that you wouldn't go berserk?" He shook his head regretfully as he said, "You promised to senior uncle. Why did you make a mistake again? I told you to calm down." Ning Shu almost laughed out loud. The silver-haired man was obviously hitting her when she was down. The girl was so angry that her cheeks puffed up. She stomped her feet and looked at the silver-haired man with hatred. Then, she softened her attitude and reached out to grab the silver-haired man's sleeve. "Brother Sang, please don't tell senior uncle that I went berserk. Otherwise, he will deal with me again." Ning Shu felt that this girl was really beautiful when she changed her attitude. When she was in trouble, she would act coquettishly. If acting coquettishly did not solve the problem, she would immediately turn hostile. If threats did not work, she would immediately act coquettishly. Chapter 3368. This girl probably didn't know what she was like. It was probably her true nature. When she was happy, she would act coquettishly. When she was unhappy, she would be ruthless. The silver-haired man said calmly to the girl's pleading, "It's too late. I've already informed the grand-uncle and asked him to come and get you." You. The girl pointed at the silver-haired man. Her fingers were trembling, and her expression changed. Then, like an ant on a hot pan, she spun around, trying to escape. A rope tied her up. The girl couldn't break free. She cursed at the silver-haired man. "Damn you, Sang Liang, I'm telling you, I won't let you go." Soon, the grand-uncle appeared. Seeing the girl tied up, he frowned. The girl bounced towards the grand-uncle with a pitiful look. "Grand-uncle, you're finally here. They're bullying me. They even tied me up. Can you let me go?" The girl blinked, forcing tears out of her eyes. Being looked at by a girl like this, an ordinary man's heart would have softened. However, the grand-uncle looked at her coldly. "Causing trouble as soon as you came out?" The girl immediately cried out, "I didn't. I really didn't. It was Sang Liang who started it." The grand-uncle couldn't be bothered to listen to her nonsense. He knew the situation very well. The grand-uncle reached out and grabbed the other end of the rope, dragging the girl away. The girl was dragged away by the grand-uncle like a dog. She bounced behind the grand-uncle and shouted, "Grand-uncle, how can you treat your woman like this? I want to go home. I don't want to stay here. Woo-woo. You're bullying me." The girl looked back at Ning Shu and said to the grand-uncle, "Grand-uncle, grand-uncle, I want the Thunder Law imprint. Help me get it. I promise I'll be obedient in the future." The grand-uncle glanced at Ning Shu and said coldly, "Your race is like this. You can't have other powers. Give up." "No, I want to open a new path for my race." I don't believe that even weak humans can use the power of laws. My race, which is blessed by nature, can't use it. The strength of a berserk beast was great, but the lack of rationality was its greatest weakness. If they maintained their rationality and wisdom, they would be so weak that they couldn't even compare to a human. Granduncle, granduncle, granduncle. The little girl chattered endlessly. Her voice was sweet and soft. Such deliberate coquetry was really high in sugar. Anyone who heard it would get diabetes. The granduncle was not moved by her voice at all. If you have nothing to do, go back to your own home. If you don't, then stay in your own territory and don't run around. Granduncle, I'm not a prisoner. Am I that ugly? Why are you putting me in a prison every day? I want to go home. I want to complain. If you treat me like this, I'll ask my clansmen to beat you to death, the little girl immediately said unruly. It's fine if you want me to be obedient. If you let me obtain the lightning law imprint, I will have to open up a new path. If our child inherits my constitution in the future and becomes a raging baby, how bad would that be? Ning Shu perked up his ears and eavesdropped on their conversation. He felt that it was a little weird. Could it be that at the level of the granduncles, they still needed sexual reproduction? Didn't the granduncle crawl out of the sea of laws? There was no doubt that this Lolita and the granduncle had that kind of relationship. A powerful race was born when a powerful race was combined with another powerful race. Ning Shu only had one question now. Could she really leave? She did not care about the love and hatred between the big shots. She had to go do the mission. Previously, he had thought that this little girl was a super mission taker. He did not expect her to be a race from the void. The granduncle said indifferently, your race can change your constitution by borrowing seeds everywhere. How would I know if I don't try? By the way, when will you let me borrow seeds? The little girl said very calmly. If it wasn't to borrow seeds from you, I would be a fucking idiot to stay here. You won't let me go anywhere. You can leave now, the granduncle said. The little girl chuckled. I won't leave unless you make me pregnant. I want to see if a person born from energy can change the situation of our race. Ning Shu was speechless. Yes, this was very social. Borrowing seeds to change the genes of one's own race. Ning Shu suddenly thought of someone. That person was Jingqing. This little girl could totally borrow a seed from Jingqing. However, Jingqing was probably soaking in the sea of law now. It would be really difficult to borrow a seed from him. Therefore, the granduncle was the best candidate. Ning Shu whispered to the silver-haired man, you are also inhuman. Why didn't she borrow a seed from you? The silver-haired man said. I don't like women. Ning Shu was stunned. He looked at the silver-haired man in horror. Really? No, the silver-haired man said calmly. Even if you want to borrow a seed, you have to find someone you like. Ning Shu sized up the silver-haired man. You are not bad either. The silver-haired man gave you a feeling of nobility, indifference, and elegance. The granduncle was too lazy to listen to her. He pulled the little girl away. Her voice traveled very far. Granduncle, the Thunder Law mark. I want that thing. The granduncle did not speak. If he wanted to get rid of this little girl, he had to make her pregnant. Oh, only the granduncle could enjoy this kind of luck. The silver-haired man stretched out his hand, and the book floating in the air fell into his hand. The silver-haired man also left. The disturbance in the inn calmed down just like that. Because of the conflict caused by the Thunder Law mark. The space lock was also removed. Ning Shu also planned to leave. He reckoned that the little girl would not cause trouble for him for a while. After all, she had caused trouble and would be imprisoned for a while. However, Ning Shu felt that this girl would not let it go. She would definitely come looking for him. After all, she had the Thunder Law mark in her hand. He reckoned that she would not dare to directly dig out the law mark from another law incarnation. After all, the organization was the grand uncle. If the little girl wanted to succeed in borrowing a seed, she would not dare to do whatever she wanted in the organization. Therefore, the girl would not give up whether she had the fusion mark in her hand or not. Although she was a little girl, Ning Shu felt that the girl had lived longer than him. Although she looked young, she was actually an old monster. The creatures in the void were powerful and lived for a long time. Moreover, they were good-looking. The man in the Cheongsam looked at the restaurant that was beyond recognition. He wanted to cry but had no tears. The tables and chairs were all broken. The ground was also a mess. There were cracks everywhere, and spider webs were everywhere. He had never seen such a violent woman. Were all women nowadays so scary? She even borrowed a seed and got pregnant. Chapter 3369. Are women so scary these days? He didn't dare to imagine. The Cheongsam man looked at Ning Shu. Do as you see fit. I've lost a lot. Ning Shu chuckled. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have met this guy. Just admit that you're unlucky. How can you blame me for this? It was clearly caused by the Thunder Law in your hands. I'm the most innocent one. You have to compensate me for fighting in my restaurant. Ning Shu. How can I compensate you alone? I'm not the only one who fought. You should also look for that sweet little girl. The Cheongsam man choked. He didn't want to live anymore. That's why he went back to look for her. The way they went berserk was really shocking and unforgettable. After they went berserk, they would only kill you and not listen to you. After all, at that time, their hearts were already occupied by killing. The Cheongsam man felt that such a race was really scary. If you angered them, they would become mindless killing machines and kill you with all their might. Such a race was really not to be trifled with. After all, once they went berserk, they wouldn't listen to you at all. He explained that he was sorry, but there was no such thing. Hence, the Cheongsam man could only admit that he was unlucky. Why was his restaurant so unlucky? Why did it always encounter such things? Was this the distortion of human nature or the decay of morals? Previously, he thought that it was just a sweet little girl. He didn't expect it to be like this. Indeed, one couldn't judge a book by its cover. However, the Cheongsam man was surprised that there was such a race in the void. The void was endless darkness and vastness. He didn't expect there to be a race living in it. If there's a race like the Zergs in the void, there must be other races. There are many of them who have gone to the sea, Ning Shu said. The Cheongsam man suddenly said, do you think she'll succeed in getting a seed? Getting a seed and mating. Was this really too damaging to the image of a judge? He felt that he had become a breeding pig. Ning Shu said, I don't know. Who cares about these things? He didn't care about the private life of a judge. Even if they really wanted to mate, it was someone else's private matter. The Cheongsam man asked, aren't you angry? Ning Shu was a little surprised. He asked curiously, why would I be angry? I wasn't forced to breed. If anyone was angry, it should be Grand Uncle. As a man, he would definitely be unhappy to be treated like a breeding pig. Isn't there a rumor that you're having an affair with the judges? The Inquisitor has a woman now. Ning Shu felt that the Cheongsam man's gossipy manner was really despicable. Gossip? Why hadn't she heard of any scandals? It was purely a rumor. There were many twists and turns in this matter. It was not what the outsiders thought at all. They were actually hurting each other. Would anyone believe that? It was clearly Grand Uncle who wanted to erase her will. The man in the Cheongsam said, didn't they say that you left the organization? You were brought back in a palanquin with 8 carriers. Ning Shu. Only 8. Why isn't it 18? Doesn't 18 sound even more exciting? You guys don't know about this. I'm leaving, Ning Shu said directly. The Cheongsam man, are you really not going to compensate me? It would take a lot of money for the restaurant to be destroyed to this extent. He was really short of money right now. Now that there was no tax and no space of laws, there was even less traffic. The man in the Cheongsam felt that he was going to die of poverty. He was very poor. Ning Shu said, you should go to the main system or the judges. After all, the person who caused the trouble is one of them. You can try to ask for compensation. The man in the Cheongsam fanned himself and said irritably, I can't hide now. Why should I go up? This kind of person can't be provoked at all. Ning Shu comforted her. It's just that the tables and chairs are gone. The entire restaurant has been destroyed. Take it easy. The man in the Cheongsam, Ning Shu returned to the system space and said to the system, do the mission. Dan Qing said, now you have 3 missions to choose from. Ning Shu was surprised. Since when did he have 3 choices? Tell me about them. Could there be so many missions? Dan Qing said, 1 is an ordinary mission. Accept the mission of the entrusted person. Another is to go to the void to find energy. If you find energy bodies, there will be a lot of rewards. The third is to watch over the evolution of the plane. Ning Shu said, I'll just do an ordinary mission. I won't consider the other 2 for now. Looking for energy bodies in the void? Damn, this mission was a test of luck. The void was so big. How long would it take to find an energy body? It was possible to find one quickly, but it was also possible that one would not be able to find one for a long time. Dan Qing said, but the reward for looking for energy bodies is a lot. The reward for the power of the soul is equivalent to the reward for more than 10 missions. But what if I don't find an energy body after doing 10 missions? Ning Shu said as he spread out his hands. Doing normal quests was a guarantee of success, but doing this kind of quests was completely uncertain. Ning Shu had never believed in his character. After all, this was how unlucky people were. Dan Qing said, then you can do the mission of watching over the plane's evolution. There are many people who do such missions. Generally speaking, at a certain level, people don't bother doing ordinary missions. Ning Shu still shook his head. It's too long. If I have to watch over the plane, it will take too long. She had to stay in a plane for a long time. The evolution of the plane was not in a minute or 2. Moreover, the flow of time in each plane was different. If it was very slow, she would stay in that world for a long time. A few hundred years was quite scary to imagine. Ning Shu felt that staying in a world for 10 years was a long time. What was the difference between 100 years in prison? Therefore, he did not need to consider this mission. Ordinary missions took a short time. If it was fast, it would take 2 to 3 months. If it was slow, it would take 3 to 4 years. This was within Ning Shu's acceptable range. Ning Shu found it boring if it took any longer. He might as well go to the void to look for treasures. Seeing that Ning Shu did not consider the other 2 missions, Dan Qing said, you can think about it. Try doing other missions. After all, you can develop freely. It's also necessary to understand how to do the other 2 missions. Ning Shu said, I will, but not now. I need a stable source of power of the soul. After all, my power of the soul is weak now. Instead of looking for illusory energy bodies and spending a lot of time watching the plane evolve, Ning Shu felt that now was not the time. A person without foresight would have immediate worries. What she was worried about now was that her soul was not strong enough. Chapter 3370. I've already chosen the task, do you want to do it now? Dan Qing asked. Ning Shu nodded. Do the task. Hurry up and run, if you don't do the task, you'll be caught to deal with the star stone. It's a little easier. A task to adjust the mood, it's better to be physically and mentally happy. Dan Qing. After all, doing the task is not going on vacation, it's always a little difficult. Ning Shu was stuffed into a body and quickly adapted. This time they were in a car, the car wasn't small, the windows were made of special materials, the outside couldn't see the situation inside the car. The car was very big, in addition to Ning Shu, there were a few other people. Sister Xian, you're awake? The assistant Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu nodded. I'll sleep for a while. Okay, you sleep, I'll call you when we arrive at the event location. The assistant immediately said, his attitude was a little humble, giving a feeling of Ning Shu. Ning Shu closed his eyes and began to receive the plot. The client was a celebrity, a second-tier celebrity, with a little fame, but not to the point where everyone knew her. But she was also a female celebrity with good performance. Her image was good, and there were a lot of commercials looking for her to endorse. Commercials were the most profitable, a commercial lasted dozens of seconds, a longer 1 minute, but the income was not small. In addition to commercials, the client also acted, but her acting was not good, but she still continued to mix in the entertainment industry. Her image was very likable, and she walked the cute and pure route. She also had a lot of fans. At least every day when she went to the company, she would receive gifts and cards from her fans. Xian's career steadily improved, and at the same time she began to hone her acting skills, so as to not always be called a vase. After all, a woman's youth was limited. It was impossible to shoot commercials and magazines for a lifetime. When she was old, there would be no more commercials to shoot. In order to prolong her career, Xian also specially enrolled in classes. Originally, this kind of life was very good, carrying the pressure to move forward, but Xian encountered the biggest bottleneck in her career. That was, she met a crazy fan. There was a kind of fan who was no longer satisfied with the public schedule of the celebrity, and even wanted to know the celebrity's private schedule. He had to grasp all the information about his idol. They would secretly take pictures of their idol's private actions, and they would even camp around the celebrities' homes. What was even crazier was that they would sneak into their homes and take a bath in the bathtub that their idols had bathed in. It felt as if they had taken a bath together with their idols. In order to satisfy their own selfish desires, they liked to stalk, peep, and secretly take photos of the daily lives of celebrities as well as their undisclosed schedules and work. They harassed the celebrities they liked and affected their, and the celebrities' families, private lives. Stalking, peeping, filming private leisure during work, waiting in hotels, filming with cameras, chartered cars, and so on. Sightseeing fans followed the celebrities' private lives and undisclosed itineraries and work, filming non-stop. These obsessive fans may not always follow the celebrities' performances, but they are always present in their private lives. This was a contradictory group. On the one hand, they gave up their own lives and blindly followed their idols. The focus of their lives was only their idols. Rain or shine, she had no time to rest, just like when she was at work. Her heart and eyes were filled with her idol, and she had no life of her own. On the other hand, she was suffering because she saw the negative side of her idol. And the celebrity's private time was completely destroyed by these people, and any information was monitored. Xian encountered such an obsessive fan. Xian would receive gifts from her fans every day, and all kinds of expressions of love. There was one fan who sent her gifts every day, rain or shine. In the beginning, Xian was touched to have such a fan, but gradually, she was not happy because this fan often sent her photos. There were even some videos, and these videos were edited to look quite good. But these photos and videos were not photos of Xian's activities, and were completely private photos. For example, she went to eat snacks when she had nothing to do. These photos were all there, and there were even captions, "I like to eat the things my goddess likes to eat." This made people's hair stand on end. After that, she did not know if it was Uxin's illusion, but she always felt that this person was by her side, definitely, definitely. Because no matter what she did, she would be photographed, and some of the photos were taken from her home. This meant that the person who took the photos was not far from her home. If they lived in this area, it would be fine, but if they were around her, it would be very scary. She was human, and sometimes it was unavoidable to let go of their restraints. Celebrities were also human, and could not always maintain a perfect image. However, these indecent videos were taken. Then, this special fan reminded her, "Goddess, you have a female voice. You can't act like a normal girl. It's too disillusioning. You have to maintain a perfect image. I like your perfect image. You completely match the image of a perfect girl in my heart." These edited videos were posted on the internet, forums, and the like, and occasionally, they would be made into memes. Actually, in this era of national entertainment, these things were small matters. After all, if you want to wear the crown, you have to bear it. If you want to survive in the entertainment industry, you have to bear a lot of pressure. But if you can make it, the money you earn is something that normal people can't earn in their lifetime. For example, endorsing an advertisement, acting in a TV drama or movie, etc. Fame was an advantage, or else why would celebrities fight to the death and use all kinds of methods to become famous? Actually, this kind of black mark was nothing to a celebrity. What was scary was this fan's attitude. It was like a shadow, and seemed to care about her, commenting on her various actions. She was even more worried about her than her manager, and the fanaticism in her words was frightening. With suspicions, Uxin felt that someone was following her nearby. Even when she returned home, she felt unsafe, because her things had been rummaged through, and the things in the fridge had been eaten. Someone must have entered her room, and Uxin told this to her manager, who immediately arranged for someone to install a camera. Then, the appearance of the mysterious obsessive fan was exposed. What Uxin did not expect was that it was a man. A man. Most of the obsessive fans were girls. After all, girls were more emotional than boys, and were more easily controlled by their emotions. But a man chasing after a celebrity all day, it was a bit. She was rummaged through by a man in her house, and even opened her wardrobe, holding her clothes with a face full of obsession, and wretchedly sniffing them. Uxin was a bit disgusted, quite disgusted. Chapter 3371. Although it was disgusting, Uxin didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so she called the man in private and told him not to disturb her. She also politely thanked him for liking her. But Uxin's thoughts were too simple. When the male fan received her call, he was very excited. Although his whereabouts were exposed, he became even more unscrupulous. Every day, he would visit her at work and secretly take photos. He would even squat in front of her house. When he was hungry, he would eat some convenient things like bread and instant noodles. After a long time, Uxin couldn't take it anymore and told the man to stop following her and stop following her. But the man righteously said, "I like you, I really like you. Not only do I like you on the screen, but I also like you in real life." The behavior of an obsessive fan disturbed public order and brought hidden dangers to public safety. This kind of harassment in the name of love made people sullen. Moreover, this man would call her from time to time. Even if Uxin changed her number, this person would still be able to get her number. If Uxin got close to a certain man in private, even if it was a private gathering, it wouldn't be allowed. If this obsessive fan knew about it, then he would immediately call Uxin and scold her behavior. He would say that if she interacted with other men like this, there would be rumors about her. You should maintain your pure image. A pure woman wouldn't meet other men in private. He also hated iron for not becoming steel. That kind of empathy, that kind of ideals, was added to Uxin's body. Whether it was a private gathering or a public gathering, this man would sneak to the scene and madly take photos of Wuxian. Moreover, all kinds of props were properly prepared. Since it was secretly taking photos, then all kinds of props were indispensable. This man simply penetrated into Wuxian's life. There was no free space for her private life. Her every move was under his surveillance. Because of this matter, Wuxian moved and set up several passwords for her security door. At the very least, she got fingerprints from 4 fingers. But this man used other channels and spent a large amount of money to buy Wuxian's address. Then he squatted there and found Wuxian's family. He would expose Wuxian's family. Wuxian's family were ordinary people. What Wuxian couldn't bear the most was that they were secretly taken photos and exposed. Just doing such a crazy thing to her was fine, but he also involved her family. Being a celebrity was just a job. It was understandable that fans would spend money on their idols. However, the family members of celebrities were not celebrities. They had no obligation to be spent on their idols. Wuxian had no other choice but to call the police and regretfully make a statement on the public platform. This kind of thing could only be done as soon as possible. If the other party wanted to expose it, they would spout nonsense and have a strong first impression. No matter how they explained, it would be useless. More than one celebrity was troubled by the problem of seeing fans. There were also celebrities who were asked to sign autographs in the middle of the night. They would stand beside you and ask if you were afraid. Wuxian chose to call the police. She couldn't bear it anymore. This seeing fan was also detained, but he didn't do anything extreme, such as murder and arson. After a while, he was released again. But when he came out, he still didn't change his previous behavior. He even went from bad to worse. He called Wuxian and said that he didn't hate her anymore. He called the police and still liked her. As long as she maintained the appearance of a pure girl should remain independent and not have any scandals with strange men. Moreover, he said that he would supervise her to prevent her from making mistakes. He couldn't watch her have any scandals with other men. Moreover, this was because he felt that his idol was very popular. In the entertainment industry, there would definitely be many people who wanted to be tied to their idols. If they wanted to be popular, they would have scandals with their idols. I will protect my idols. Perhaps it was this strong sense of responsibility that drove people to repeat things without feeling tired. Their fanaticism was comparable to a sect. Wuxian was powerless. Even if she called the police, she would be detained and educated. After a while, she would be released again. So damn desperate. If it was just stalking and harassment, it was fine. The turning point of the matter was that Wuxian met with a man. Actually, this man was Wuxian's friend. Other than that, there was no other relationship. But the seeing fans who knew about Wuxian's private life found out and took pictures of the two people having a meal. No matter how much Wuxian disguised herself, wearing all kinds of hats and sunglasses on her body, she hated that she couldn't wear a mask. But an experienced seeing fan had all kinds of images of their idols imprinted in their mind. Just by looking at the background, they could tell if this was their idol or not. In short, there were only things that you couldn't think of. There was nothing that they couldn't do. Climbing over walls and making keys was a necessary skill. Picking up their idols at the airport, and not missing their idols filming locations and announcements was the most basic professional self-restraint. This man took pictures of Wuxian having a meal with another man. He was furious. It felt as if he had been betrayed. The faith in his heart had collapsed. The man said to Wuxian, "You are pure and should be pure and flawless. Do you know why I am your fan? It is because you are pure and there is no negative news. There is no news of you sleeping with other people. But what are you doing now? Secretly meeting with a man to have a meal. What are you going to do next?" This man put all the virtues of a woman, and even the characteristics of a woman that he had imagined, onto Wuxian. Perhaps this man was hurt by a woman in his life. He imagined a perfect woman, and Wuxian was a perfect woman in his heart. He was furious with Wuxian's behavior and even hit her. When Wuxian was struggling, the broken glass directly cut her eyes. At that time, Wuxian felt her eyeballs turn red. A strong and sharp thing pierced her eyeballs. The man was frightened and ran out of the door. Although this man was finally arrested and sentenced, Wuxian had no fate with her career in this life. She had never heard of a half-blind person being a celebrity. One of Wuxian's eyes was completely blind. Her eyeball was gray and no longer clear. The pupil was gone. Only one eye could see. Wuxian's contract was terminated by the management company. She was reduced to the point where she had no job to take. The client was young and beautiful. This was her capital. She wanted to hone her acting skills and take on TV dramas and movies. But since she was blind, she had to leave the entertainment industry. The client was unwilling. Her life was ruined. The other party was only sentenced. After all, they didn't kill anyone. She was only blind in one eye. She was still alive, but she lost everything. Chapter 3372. She also became a disabled person, and that person just stayed in prison for a few years. After a few years, he would be a good man again. Maybe he would still be entangled with her after he came out. The client didn't want her eyes to be blind, and at the same time, she wanted to get rid of this horrible obsessive fan. This obsessive fan is probably the most horrible. The client wants to save her career and get rid of this horrible obsessive fan. It's also a modern society. Even if you commit a crime, there are laws. As a public figure, if you do something out of line and are exposed, you will be drowned in saliva, and your career will also come to an end. But it's only a few years in prison, and it's impossible to be sentenced to life imprisonment. Therefore, even if she is in prison, the client feels that she may not be able to get rid of this obsessive fan at all. They are no longer ordinary idols and fans. After receiving the plot, Ning Shu opened her eyes and told the assistant that she wanted to drink water. The assistant immediately took out the purified water. Next, they are going to shoot an advertisement. This advertisement is a juice advertisement. After receiving this advertisement, Ning Shu can only drink this brand of juice if she wants to drink juice in the future. No matter what it is in private, if she wants to drink juice in public, she will drink this. After all, she was given so much money to shoot advertisements. As a qualified spokesperson, this is what she should do. For example, if the client receives a lot of advertisements, shampoo, skincare products, and the like, the merchants will give her some for use. The client doesn't even have to buy the shampoo herself, which is great. Ning Shu drank a mouthful of water and scanned the surrounding situation with her spiritual force. Now the road is a bit congested. It's the morning rush hour, and the car is very slow. The car is like a turtle, and it can't move. As soon as Ning Shu's spiritual force swept out, the surrounding situation was clearly seen. Sure enough, there was a van following this car, and the distance was very close. The driver is a man in his 20s. Although he is a man, he should be regarded as a boy. He is quite white and gentle, but who would think that this person is a fanatical obsessive fan? And the person who chases stars is not a star or something like that, but a female star. When a man looks at a woman, he appreciates her. He won't spend too much time on a female star. Generally, most of the obsessive fans are girls. After all, in the age of appearance, women also have the spending power and are very crazy. Girls' fans are crazier. But when a man went crazy, it was also very scary. For example, this man was quite scary. He didn't see the client as an idol, but as an incarnation, a perfect incarnation. Once the client did something that he didn't like or couldn't tolerate, he would go overboard. After all, some groupies would commit suicide when their idols were about to get married. Rational fans were hard to come by. They doted on their idols and protected their idols' happiness. Now that their idols had a partner, they wished them well with tears in their eyes. You must be happy. She was going to shoot an advertisement. Was this person following her? It was simply insane. Ning Shu felt that this man must have suffered a heavy blow, which was why he placed his hopes on a female celebrity. This kind of emotion was really too strong. Strong enough to hurt others. To have such a fan was really unlucky for 8 lifetimes. It was indeed true that one fan was better than 10 haters. Powder will naturally turn black when it reaches the depths. Ning Shu withdrew her spiritual power. How should she deal with this obsessive fan? This was because his client had lost everything. Like a maggot in a tarsal bone, he couldn't get rid of it no matter what he did. Like a shadow, who could get rid of a shadow? This man had already become her client's shadow, something that she could not get rid of. How should she deal with it? The safest way was to make this person disappear from this world. The safest way to make someone disappear was to let him die and his soul enter the world of reincarnation. They were no longer in the same world. How could they be entangled? From then on, they would be free. But this was a society ruled by law. If she made a move, there would always be traces. Using her spiritual power to directly turn him into a fool. Or using her spiritual power to directly cause this guy to get into a car accident, break his legs or become blind. When one's own life was a mess, even when one couldn't take care of himself, he certainly wouldn't have the leisure to care about other people's lives. No matter how good an idol was, when one's own survival couldn't be guaranteed, he wouldn't be in the mood. This man was an otaku. He usually stayed at home and didn't go out. A computer and a mobile phone were his everything. This man's house was full of photos of Wuxia. When the police walked into his room, the 4 walls were all filled with photos and posters of people. There were also posters of various advertisements. As much as possible, the things in the house were endorsed by the client. This kind of bigotry was really a bit scary. Wuxia deliberately hurt people and even caused them to be disabled. But in court, he didn't feel that he did anything wrong. Since this belief was wrong, then he would personally break this belief. Damn, this kind of fan asked you if you were afraid? Ning Shu felt very scared. A person would invade your life from every angle. You wouldn't have any personal space. She knew your preferences and even knew your period better than you. The key was that the other party didn't feel that he did anything wrong. Belief? Belief my ass. Thinking about it so much. Being a celebrity was just a job. It wasn't like being a Virgin Mary to make people admire and worship her. Speaking of which, being in the entertainment industry was also so dangerous. Celebrities wanted to be famous, but there were many problems that came with being famous. Ordinary fans were still okay, but this kind of obsessive fan was very scary. If it was anyone, even if it was an ordinary person, being followed and monitored by such a person would make one feel scared. There was an unruly person who wanted to harm the emperor. But if it was solved directly, it would be over in less than half a day after coming to this world. The client would probably be dumbfounded, and the soul power given wouldn't be much. It was equivalent to hiring someone to kill someone. It was better to use other methods to solve the problem without killing anyone. He had just come to this world and wanted to familiarize himself with it. Let's not talk about this person first. Wuxia was just trying to take photos secretly. It hadn't developed to the point where he would climb over the wall and sneak into the house. Of course, Ning Shu wouldn't let him develop to this point. Moving also required money, okay? It was troublesome to move around too. He slowly went to the location of the announcement. Next was to shoot the advertisement. Shooting an advertisement was difficult but also simple. It needed to highlight the product. Ning Shu hadn't shot an advertisement before and was eager to try. Looks like I'm going to shoot My Glorious Beauty. Ning Shu started to look at the script. He needed to remember the advertising message. The message had to be catchy, easy to remember, and rhythmic. Only then would it leave a deep impression. It wasn't afraid of being vulgar, but it wasn't deafening. If it wasn't deafening, how could it be remembered? Chapter 3373. Although some of the advertising slogans were really weird. Ning Shu sat on the chair and looked outside. Guoxiang had a camera hanging around his neck. He held the camera and walked around. He stretched the camera and took pictures of Ning Shu. Ning Shu didn't say anything. He pretended that he didn't know anything and let him take pictures. This kind of person was really hard to deal with. He didn't do anything wrong, but it was very painful. Actually, killing a person wasn't a cruel thing. It was completely destroying a person's life and hope. It was the most terrifying thing to make a person have nothing to live for. Guoxiang didn't know the pain and fear he brought to his idol. Ning Shu started to shoot the advertisement. He NG'd a few times. The main reason was that Ning Shu had never shot an advertisement before. But at least he had shot one before. He got the feeling and passed it. The duration of the advertisement was very short. Half a day was enough to shoot an advertisement. When it ended, the work for the day was over. The workload wasn't very big, but the endorsement fee was quite high. It was easy to earn money in the entertainment industry. If one became famous, there would naturally be more opportunities to earn money. Some people couldn't make it even after working hard for their entire lives. Some people were late bloomers and reached new heights after accumulating enough. The only shortcut for the client was good looks. She had a well-proportioned body and was very beautiful. She had an advantage in this aspect. She relied on her beautiful appearance. But a beautiful appearance would fade one day. So, the client had always been looking for a way out. In the end, she met such an obsessive fan who said that all her plans for the future were ruined. There was no future. If there was a problem with her appearance, even if she was scratched, she could try her best to repair it. Although it wouldn't be to the extent of recovering, it wouldn't be a problem. But if she was blind, there was no way to repair it. There was no way at all. Could it be that she could change her eye? If she wanted to change it, she would have to change her entire eyeball. Because her eye, whether it was the cornea or the entire vitreous body, had been destroyed. There had never been a case of a successful eye change. The client's previous earnings were only enough for her to live for about 10 years. After all, she had endorsed many advertisements. But that was 10 years later. Maybe she could use the money to make some investments or start a small business or something. It might not be a problem to guarantee her life. But what if Guoxiang was released from prison? If they got entangled with each other, it would be devastating. His client had sent him to prison for a few years, and he would not let it go so easily. The client understood. That was why he wanted to change his fate and get rid of this person. When they went back, the van behind them was still following them. Didn't this kind of person have anything to do? Didn't he need to work to support himself? Why did he have to wait for an obvious spot all day? He was wasting his good time on such meaningless things. Moreover, the celebrities themselves didn't need such terrifying attention. Ning Shu felt that he wouldn't be able to keep tailing them like this. With such perseverance, there was nothing that could not be dug out, and there was nothing that could not be obtained. If he put this perseverance on the right path and put it into work, he would probably be the top scorer in the industry. Ning Shu returned to his apartment, turned on his computer, and browsed through forums, Weibo, and other platforms. Guoxiang was a very active person on the internet. The emotions that he couldn't express in real life could be fully expressed on the internet. Guoxiang's online account was very easy to find. All of his topics were focused on Uxin, and all of his topics were focused on her. In short, he was the most active person. Guoxiang's online nickname was True Love Uxin. His photo album was full of photos and videos of Uxin. Some of the videos were encrypted, and they were basically his selfies. He was active on the internet all day long, and all kinds of platforms were constantly refreshing the two names Uxin. It was very mushy on the internet, and all kinds of expressions of love had reached the point where passers-by were disgusted. Originally, he didn't have any feelings for Uxin, this celebrity. But there were people who frequently spammed the screen, saying all kinds of things about Goddess Uxin, pure and moving, and so on. It was very annoying. One fan is worth 10 haters. This was probably the situation. But Guoxiang himself didn't have any feelings. If someone said bad things about Uxin, he would rush up and reason with them. He was like a mad dog, and he would take whoever he caught. Because of this, Guoxiang was still quite famous on the internet. Those who knew that Guoxiang liked Uxin a lot, but those who didn't know would think that he was a high-level hater. He was praising Uxin on the surface and criticizing her secretly. He was deliberately destroying the good impression that passers-by had of Uxin. Anyone who saw this kind of brainless fan would feel that the celebrity wasn't good. With this kind of brainless fan, they wouldn't have any feelings for the celebrity. They would even feel disgusted. But Guoxiang didn't feel the same. He would chase after people and tear them apart until the other party admitted defeat. Then, it would be like he had won a battle, and he would feel that he had protected Uxin once again. When Ning Shu saw these scenes, he felt that this Guoxiang's brain was a bit underdeveloped. Otherwise, he wouldn't do such things. A normal person wouldn't spend so much time doing such a meaningless thing. Moreover, he didn't know that this kind of behavior was completely attracting haters for his idol. Ning Shu returned to the apartment, and the van also followed him to the vicinity of the apartment. Guoxiang was holding the camera and looking at the photos that he had just taken. The photos were all of Uxin's magnificent beauty. She was really beautiful. Guoxiang's face was intoxicated. He reached out his hand and touched the face of the person in the photo through the screen. Right now, he could only secretly take photos. If he could touch her skin, how good would it be? Uxin definitely didn't know of his existence. He was silently protecting her. Guoxiang was moved by himself. He should be a unique fan in the world of star chasing. He dared to say that no other fan could do what he did. He was proud of it. Dong dong. Someone knocked on the car window. Guoxiang thought that it was the security of the apartment coming over to prevent random parking. He pulled down the window and was surprised to see a beautiful face. Her skin was like cream, and her eyes were like autumn water. She was so beautiful, even more beautiful than the person in the photo. When a person was on camera, their figure and face would be pulled up a little. The person in the photo might not be as good-looking as in reality. Guoxiang was caught off guard to see his idol. Moreover, it was so close. His heart was thumping. It was simply a feeling of being moved. Especially the bursts of fragrance emitted from her body. It smelled like perfume but also not like perfume. It was lighter than perfume and more elegant. It was the fragrance of her body. Guoxiang felt that the air around him was starting to thin, making it difficult for him to breathe. His face felt like it was on fire. Ning Shu looked at Guoxiang. Such a white and clean boy with gentle eyes. If he was placed in school, he would have the image of a top student. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.